All right.
Sweet.
We'll give it a second here. I'm going to make sure. I always have to make sure that it's actually live.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are live. We'll give people a second to join. But hello, everyone. I'm Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. Thank you so much for joining all of us on my channel. Why don't we just go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into some maybe general thoughts. So Jen, if you want to start.
Sure. Hello, I'm Jen from the Book Refuge. I'm representing Lady Locken today because she's badass and amazing. All the ladies had great stuff going on in this book. It was so great. But yeah, I'm doing good. Still emotionally damaged, even a week later. Still just trying to live with it.
Yep, trying to move on. Taji, you can go next.
Hey everybody, I'm Taji from Taji's World of Books, and I am representing the witches and Manon and the Kraken. So I am, like Jen, still emotionally damaged. I found myself crying this go round, but for very different reasons than what I cried the first time, equally sobbing and emotional. So it was just so fantastic, and I'm so excited to dive in and talk and unpack all this goodness that we've got today. So thanks for having me, Rachel.
Oh, of course. And Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe from Not So Average Joe, and I am representing the queen bitch herself, the fire-breathing bitch queen. Mommy Aelin is in the house. No, but I love this book. I love this series. I think there's so much stuff that happens in this book, especially since the one previously was following Kale. It's like all of the stuff is in this book. So yeah, I'm excited. We're going to talk all about it.
I love it.
Yes.
I want to make the comment. Sorry, the fact that this one's called KOA as the short of it, as in like knock you on your ass, is what I call this book. Like,
good job.
Accurate.
Anyway,
hello everyone. So happy to have you all here, and I am representing the icon, the legend that is Lysandra, Lady of Caravare. So excited to be here with you all.
Oh man.
Oh, 3 hours. Oh, you're in the home stretch though.
I mean, in the audiobook, there's like 2 hours of wrap up. So she might be like through a lot of the big stuff. Because I remember I was like, oh, the people are dead or gone. And there's still like 2.5 hours. I needed to come down from it, but I was like, there's a lot of wrap up for this one. So
yes. So I did just want to, we can do some general thoughts. I'm assuming we're all rereading this, correct?
For us, you might not.
For us, like here.
Yeah, we're all
rereading it.
Okay. So definitely people in the comments let us know if you're reading this for the first time. Because I'd love to know your thoughts. I know that my thoughts definitely slightly changed upon reread, mainly for me because I had the audiobook this time. So the pacing was so much better, and it just really brought the story to life for me. But what did you guys feel generally upon reread?
I feel like the first time around, I'm obviously emotionally invested, but the first time I read this, I was really emotionally invested in like a sad way. I was crying all the time, just constantly. And I feel like this time I was more pissy. I was just more bitter about everything that was going on. And I feel like that's the main thing that changed for me. I mean, obviously I still had fun, but it was more of like a pissy kind of fun.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. I feel like I need to reread it. Yeah, let's see.
I forgot so much. I forgot so much about this book.
Yeah. This time I was very aware how important Irene was.
Yes.
I mean, she was important the first time, but I was just so much more aware after like we'd reread Tower of Dawn. I was like, oh my God, this is what was so important, because in the midst of reading it the first time, you know, as I've said, like all of the last 5 SJM books that we're like reading right, we're rereading these like last ones here. I read those all in a day except for Crescent City. So a lot of it is like smushed in my head. Like I know the beginnings and the end and like my favorite like scenes throughout.
Sure.
But these rereads some of them I did in a day again, but it's like I'm still kind of like absorbing so much. And for this one, I'm definitely also more invested in more characters than I was the first time. And part of that was like, I mean, I loved Irene the first time. I really did. I've shared that a lot when we talked about Tower of Dawn, but I just really cared about her and Kale and like his home. And I was just so invested in that. Like, I don't have a chip on my shoulder about Kale anymore. He's just,
yes,
he's just part of it. And so like, oh my God, when these 3 get to see each other again, I was a mess.
A mess.
These two, like when they're standing like near the edge of it, and it's like, this is where they met.
Oh yeah.
I was just so broken because I was like, I love all the characters.
Yes.
There isn't anyone I don't love, even when they're being a dickhead Aelin. Like there isn't anyone I don't. But these 3, like, even though like they're all with different people. Yeah. They're not like, this wasn't a love triangle and someone's a loser. Like they all have partners. They all have where they were important, but they have this friendship and a love for each other that like, there's no bitterness or like edge. Anyway, sorry, I could wax on, but like, I love friendship so much. And I just think that it really showed like their friendship and their self-sacrificing for each other is what saves the world. And I love that shit. That they do that. So
when everybody's on the same page with that. I mean, and this is one of those books that I absolutely like could never binge. Like I absolutely have to take my time with it. For me, this time around, I took it 100 pages at a time, and that really worked for me. Just because, oh my God, it's so much. It's just so much everything, so much feelings, just so much happening, so much to process.
I took it a lot slower this time too. I started it much earlier on and gave myself plenty of time to read it. And like when you were talking, like the things that I was focused on this time were very different than what I was focused on last time. And I felt very differently about, for example, like Lorcan and Aelin's relationship, and when she actually gave him the blood oath and like what that was like in that conversation. The first time I read it, I had my back all up and I was like, here's Aelin like knowing everything for everybody. And this time around, I was like, she's so gracious. It was so wonderful. And even though he did all these things, and so I was like coming from a very different place. And I found myself much more focused this time on Aelin and Lorcan's relationship and his sobs, and just really looking at the development of that and really loving every ounce of it. Whereas the first time around, I was really focused on Rowan and Aelin, clearly.
Yes.
Invested in that. So
yeah.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it's always the thing, like I had said this in Stacy, I think I said this in like our Patreon things. I don't think I said it on like a live, but people who were reading it, they were really nervous. And I was like, well, I just want to tell you, like, I know we all keep saying we're really sad and we like cried, but like Sarah J. Maas is still a romance writer at her heart. So if someone's in a couple, they live. Like I told people, I was like, if someone's in a couple, they live. I was like, yes, people died. Like a lot of people died. And some that hurt more than others, but also like, it's amazing that she makes you care about those people. So it still feels like a loss, even though like pretty much everybody does get an HEA, like pretty much everybody does.
I'm totally going to hold you to that, Jen, with Crescent City and how the last book of Crescent City, like, teasing you guys.
But again, I say like people in a couple, like we don't know who her final couples are yet.
No, we don't.
I mean, I'm hoping. Anyway.
That's a different conversation.
So why don't we just go ahead and jump right on into going into this. I have banners for pretty much everything. So we have part 1, Armies and Allies. This starts off with, we have 2 chapters. We've got one from Rowan's POV and we have one from Aelin's POV. Both are gut-wrenching. So we're starting the book off with pain, with just agony.
I'm sorry.
No, just what a way to start What
Yeah.
a way to start the book, you know?
Yeah.
You're thrown right into it, like all into the pain.
Yeah.
It's almost as if it's crazy. Like those first couple chapters really just like drop you back into the story as if you had just finished Empire of Storms.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it felt like there had been no time at all, even though for us it had been a few months since we read Empire of Storms. So yeah. So I broke this up the way the wiki synopsis does. So we're going to talk about this in chunks in certain characters' POVs. So first of all, we have Manon, Dorian, the 13. They're in the mountains with the Kraken witches. And I'm going to just keep referencing this synopsis because even though I just finished it a couple days ago, there's a lot to think about and a lot to unpack. So, you know, they're continuing their search for the Kraken witches. And like we get a scene where Dorian summons Gavin using word marks to find out where the last word key is. Gavin reveals that it's in Morath, and he says that Damaris can guide him because it can tell truths from lies. So is there anything so far that we want to bring up about that?
I think this is like so interesting to me because that means that like 2 word keys were there the whole time, right?
In Morath.
Yeah, because
one was Kaltane.
Yeah, because the one was in her.
Yeah.
Right.
And that she ends up getting away. So like he like there always was like 2 there. Which I mean maybe was mentioned before, but I feel like we didn't know that.
I think they kind of thought that he had at least 2 based on what he was doing, and they didn't know where the third one was. I think it was like kind of hinted that they suspect that he has it, but I think this is the first time that somebody actually reveals that it's in Morath.
Because because they kind of mention it when they talk about it being like in Kaltane. Like, is that what he wanted, was to have 3 people that he put them in? Was that always what it was? Like he wanted like Aelin, Elide, and Dorian to each have the control of them? Is that kind of what I was taking from this? Like that would have been his goal.
I think that's like the easiest way to wield them, from what I understand, is if you have control of a person.
Right.
Especially a person who has magic.
Yeah.
That must be the most powerful and like easiest way to wield them. But I agree that is a slightly confusing topic. Yeah, absolutely. And so like as we keep going in this chunk of the story, we have Manon being attacked by a bear that turns out to be the Stygian spider, who took those years from Falcon, who is Lysandra's uncle. I love this connection. I love that this spider is back in the story. Just so interesting. Like, and what is it? Oh, the spider. Oh, right. The spider like leads them to the Kraken camp, where Glennis is and where all the other Krakens are. And so she's like, Manon and the 13 are just like, how do we gain their trust? Like, how the hell are we supposed to get them on our side and to fight with us in this war that like seemingly has nothing to do with them? That is a very interesting part.
Yeah, and Manon does some sneaky things.
This is my first instance of pissy. I mean, I completely understand why she did it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I completely and utterly understand why she did it. But also, I think that it's kind of sneaky, but also Manon is an Iron Teeth witch, and she has been raised to be this ruthless creature, right? And so it makes sense for her character, but I was still just like, I forgot about it, and I was like, why? And then, of course, Dorian's upset too, so I was like, yeah, Dorian.
I don't know. It seemed like something Aelin would do too.
Yeah, it does.
I wasn't like they're a mirror of each other. Like she might not have went to the point of something that could end up with people dead. Yeah. But Aelin would do something exactly like this. I feel like she has.
Unapologetically done stuff like that, you know.
It's just that she's the dark reflection of her, kind of, in a way. So it's Yeah, she learned it from Aelin. Exactly. It's like, how do you get someone on your side? You give them a common enemy. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's, she takes that and she mixes it with the witch side of her that will do, the wild side of her, let's just say, or like the dark side, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do I one up this,
I don't know. I think my whole hang up about it, which I still love Manon. This is not a problem that I have with Manon. But I just felt so bad for the Krakens just in general throughout the entirety of the series. When we start to get Manon's story, I just felt so bad for them. And they're welcoming like pretty much what they see as a wolf into a mix of their family, and she has this plan and some of them end up dying. And I just felt so bad for them. And I think my empathy towards the Krakens led to my just irritation. But like I said, it's not against Manon. I love Manon.
Yeah.
She's badass. But still, I just felt so bad for them. I felt so bad.
And there's so much history. There's so much history behind the Krakens versus the Iron Teeth versus like the Blue Bloods versus like all these different witch clans and the Wastes and like hundreds of years of history that is now coming to fruition, right? So I mean, it's a complicated situation for sure, but it's like, obviously we all understand why Manon did what she did, and like it ends up working eventually, like because then we're like, well, they discover that the Stygian spiders are Valg, even though we already knew that, of course, because of Tower of Dawn, and so then. So Glennis tells her that only a Kraken queen can summon the Krakens to war, and Manon has not been accepted. So they make plans to travel to Eelway to assist their own, but they arrive too late to save anyone. So this scene got me all when Manon and the 13 bury the dead that are there.
Yeah.
Like that is a scene that I can vividly imagine. Oh my God. Yeah. So heavy. And so it says only 4 Kraken covens have made it to the king and queen of Eelway and are now aiding them. Eelway is still fighting against Morath's army. And then from there, we're going to move to Dorian's POV a little bit. Well, it goes back and forth between Dorian and the Krakens, but because this is kind of a complicated POV to like separate out. But let's see here. Because right. Dorian, he's doing his summoning again. This time, I think, doesn't he like accidentally summon Keltane, or did he mean to? I can't remember.
He did not mean to. I think he tried to summon Gavin again. And Keltane showed up.
Yes. So,
well, because Gavin can't always come.
Huh?
Like Gavin can't always come.
Right.
And it's getting harder and harder, I think, is part of it, because he wants to reunite him with her if he can, but
it's like the whole thing of like if they forge the lock that leads to like Elena's ultimate demise, and like that's a very complicated thing as well. And then something that I was just reminded of is that with the whole spider thing, because she got some shape-shifting abilities from Falcon, they killed her. I think her name was Serene or something, or Cyrene or whatever.
Yeah.
And so now Dorian is like trying to develop these shape-shifting abilities.
Yeah.
That's a really cool part of the story. Like that one scene where he's having a conversation with Manon, and so like they're being a little bit more vulnerable to each other, and then Manon's like, "Oh, by the way, your eyes are brown."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?"
Yeah. You got to get in touch with yourself. So also, is it correct that when you kill one of the Stygian spiders who've made a deal, didn't it undo the years that he lost?
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like that's something that could come up in another world sometime. Of like,
I feel like that's a really cool concept.
Of like you made a deal, and if you kill that being, it undoes. It undoes the deal you made. I'm like, I don't know. That's never shown up anywhere else where I've seen, but I was like, I feel like that's something that could be used again someday to keep an eye out for. Of like,
I could absolutely see that, especially like Akatar pops into my mind. Like, there's so many deals going on, like in that series,
well, like especially if there's crossover creatures, like you know, we'll definitely get into that near the end of this, of like, there are so many crossover creatures. There's got to be creatures who make deals, you know, and if you killed them, it would like undo something. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
Dorian.
Yeah, Dorian is so overpowered in this book, and I absolutely love him. Every second, he is just kicking ass. He's like the bomb.com. I think he's amazing.
His character development throughout the whole series in general.
Yeah,
he's incredible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
He's kind of the only dude who really like has wins in this one. Otherwise, it's like ladies.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it. I've said Sarah J. Maas is the one who can do girl power all day if she wants, but like Dorian's kind of the exception.
Yeah.
He's got it. So
and this go round, I felt like it was a real setup. Like I feel like his story is being set up for like what's coming in the subsequent books, and I feel like it's going to be the Dorian Manon show in maybe another book, like as we move forward. Just because I feel like the witches and Manon's, as her connection with the Balg, is much more significant in terms of like her role in helping to defeat them because of her lineage and her eye color, which we've read in previous books. And so I've always sort of thought that, so I'm curious to see where that will go in the future. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, I hope we get more TOA or TOG. Yeah.
so many letters. And so then moving forward, let's see. Oh yeah. So he is able to transform into a raven. And so he scouts the Farian Gap. They all end up going to the Farian Gap, but they realize that the Iron Teeth Horde is gone, but Petra Blue Blood and 300 Iron Teeth remain. And so this is an iconic scene when Manon talks to them, right? And she's like talking about like, hey, we were all raised to be monsters.
Right.
And she's talking about how like this war is for a better world and like trying to get them on her and the 13 side. It's such a cool, like she has this like whole monologue.
Yeah. I saw it as like a Braveheart speech, like a kind of revving everybody up, like ready for battle type monologue at that time. Like I could envision that, you know?
Yeah. That was, and then I loved, like, she's so iconic. She just, like, freaking left. She didn't even stay to, like, debate with them or anything. Like, she was just like, this is how I feel, and if you want to be with the good guys, okay, bye. And then she just leaves with the 13, like, oh my God, such a cool scene.
Can we, but, like, before we push further too, because one of the parts that was the hardest in the beginning of this is, like, where the battles are happening. Because Manon, they want to go help, because there's the two main places where stuff is happening. It's at Chaol's family home, and then it's where Aelin is, right? And they're in Terrasen.
Yes.
So
we'll get to them in a bit.
Yes. I'm just, because that's who Manon is trying to gather, is people to help in Terrasen.
Yes,
right?
She is ultimately trying to get back to, because that was the whole thing of like, hey, let's go find these word keys and then let's get to Terrasen.
Okay.
You know, let's go.
Like, I know we'll get there. I just know for me, when I was rereading it, I was like, okay, because we do keep bouncing to Aelin and all of his crisis that he's having.
Yes.
I know we'll get to him, but like they are in a really bad spot, and then Chaol's family too. Those are like the two spots, right?
Crises that are going. Yeah.
Cool. Back to what we're doing.
Absolutely, because like with Manon and them, they go to Eelway just because the Krakens had promised. There must be Krakens in Eelway. Yeah, there's war bands, so they had promised them, and then now they're let's see.
Well, and there's the women who like they have families and stuff too, right? Because that's when they're on their way there, that it's like ladies are taking up their brooms and they're leaving their families to go help. Like when they finally agree to help her.
When they finally
they all like leave and like, oh my God, like I was just crying.
Yes, oh my God, that scene. Yeah, it's like women that like they had no clue that they had married witches, like these men. And they just go get a broom and they're like take up my broom.
I'll be back for dinner. Like I was just like, oh, so good.
Another just iconic moment that just makes me think of like a movie montage.
Oh yeah,
like so freaking cool. And so then they go back to the Kraken hearth, and the three matrons show up. And so another just epic and iconic moment on. Like, it's just like epic scene after epic scene after epic scene in this book. But like, come on, like her taking them on by herself. And that's really the only way that they could have done it. Like, she had to be the one to take all three of them on, you know? And so she ends up killing the Yellow Legs matron, spares the Blue Blood matron, and Manon's grandmother flees. She just runs.
I love how it's kind of like a parallel to what happened when she first battled her grandma, you know, because she had to flee, and now her grandma's like, oh shit, we gotta go, you know, running away. And Manon just lets her go. She's like, just let her go. What's the point, you know?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Stacey,
I need this.
By the time I'm like 40, maybe they'll all be.
Right? Right? It take forever. Oh
like,
my god.
Oh my gosh. If it takes like because I can't even imagine, like, I just think of like ACOTAR and how many characters they have. Like, these have so many more. At least with ACOTAR, like, most of it's in Feyre's POV. So at least you can like condense it a little bit, and it's what she sees. But I mean, I'm interested to see what they'll have to do with Silver Flames. Like, how many freaking books is Silver Flames going to be?
Yeah, how many parts? Yeah, absolutely.
And that one's not first person POV, so I think that'll be interesting too, because it's still someone like narrate. Sorry, I've thought of this, but thinking of this.
All of these books are in third person. So, like, what would like, what are they going to do?
That's what I mean. Of like, will they have like a single narrator, but then different characters for everything?
Maybe,
you know, like they'll just be one narrator who tells it, because
that's probably the best way to do it.
Sorry,
but just a last little chunk for this part of the story is that after all of this, Manon's grandmother flees, so Glennis then crowns Manon the Queen of Witches. And so Manon and Dorian make up, and he decides to go to Morath the next day. And then remember, she wakes up and he's gone. He just, and that's really the only way I get it. Like, I get why he left like in the middle of the night, because
he can't come.
Yeah, like that was just a complicated thing between the two of them, and between like, like it kind of just had to happen that way.
Tear the Band-Aid off. Just do it quick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's either gonna succeed, or like they're still gonna try to go help, even if he doesn't. You know. If he doesn't, then we're really in it. But if he does, then at least we have a chance, you know.
And him with his badass shapeshifting now. Like, he's the only one that can do this, really.
I mean, I know, like, we're going to do it. We're going to get there. But, like, oh, my God. I remember the first time when he has scenes with Maeve. I blew
yes!
We should go back to Aelin. What's happening?
So, our next big chunk is...
Terrasen. Okay.
We got Terrasen. We got struggle in Terrasen. Okay. Like,
you can say this
it's real. It's real.
It is real. And I remember the first time that I read this, I really struggled with this POV, like the first chunk of this POV, because it's like, we would have these chapters with like Rowan and the gang, and we'll get to them in a bit too. Rowan and the gang trying to find Aelin and stuff. And then we'd cut to this. And I'm like, okay, but I like at this moment, I don't want to read about them struggling, like winning battles by the skin of their teeth, and or losing battles, or like, you know, they are just in a bad place.
Well, and him humiliating her in little ways and doing that, like, we need to be a team, and he just like can't get over his shit. And like, I want to say that I partially get it, and the partially part that I get is that he's already felt like he's been doing stuff on his own all these years because of what Aelin was going through, and now it's like, and then you kept something else from me that is like, you were going to let yourself be killed, and like, I'm supposed to get to do about it. Like, I understand that little tiny piece of it.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is, it's like everybody else is working their ass off, and you're making this needlessly difficult for someone who's had to give up her identity to help her queen. Right. And you're just rubbing salt in her wounds at every opportunity. And it's gross.
It's like really hard to read.
Yeah, like even on a reread where like I understood those things and like I want it, because this time I was like, I'm gonna try to see if I'm as annoyed with him the whole time. Like I honestly, the way like where this time around I was like, Kale, I'm giving him a break. I like him.
Mhm.
I could not give him a break
Mhm.
for just his like pettiness and putting it all on her, and just she has had to let her like her daughter basically like is in the middle of this, you know, her friend daughter, whatever the word it is, and she's had to give up her identity, and like they're both in the same place, and you're just being needlessly cruel to her.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I would have a redemption feeling for him by the end like I did the first time. I'm still undecided.
Yeah. I will say this time around, I feel like I just felt more like sad and disappointed.
Yeah.
Whereas the first time I was more angry, and for very good reason. It is very hard to see things from his POV. He's so fucking stubborn. He is so stubborn. And when he gets a feeling about somebody, he is going to dig his heels in.
Mhm.
And like, it's just crazy to me though, because of like, you know, leave the feelings between the two of them behind for a second and just think about what an asset Lysandra is. Like, why are you treating your asset like a piece of shit?
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Like, he could have shut off the romantic part and been like,
that's what I'm saying.
Like, we're not talking outside of this. But to do the petty shit that he does was really stressful to me. And then, I was going to say, make another comment about it, but it just went out of my head. It's fine. But yeah, it's just, I remember. So he'd be doing this stuff, and then we'd have like a scene of Gabriel being like, Aelin is my pride. And I would cry. Like, I would cry because he absolutely is. And so then I would have to be like, okay, dude's struggling. But I would see him act like such a shit. And then there would be him like talking to a lead and being like, Aelion's my pride. And I'm like, stop it.
I know.
He does. He was doing his best. But anyway.
Yeah, he's just, And I do feel like this whole conflict between the two of them goes on for too long. As well. Like, that's one of the hardest parts of the book.
Drawn out. Yeah.
It is very drawn out, and just too stubborn for too long.
That's a good way to put it. He's very stubborn, and he's very like stuck on his pity party.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all he's self-focused, and look at what I've been robbed of, and look at like everything that I've gone through and had to do on my own, and doesn't like step out and say, he says like, we're supposed to be a team and we're supposed to be working together, but he does a lot of things in isolation. You know what I mean? And with that comes from his own perspective and what's good for him, as opposed to what's good for the collective, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like when talking about it going on for too long, it stops very abruptly as well. For me, how it felt, it stopped very abruptly because we have that situation where Lysandra has, you know, the men are fleeing. Lysandra's like, okay, I got to get these men back on this battlefield. She becomes Aelin. She almost dies. But I'm like, Lysandra risks her life every single time she steps onto that battlefield, regardless of what form she's in.
Exactly.
And he still treats her with he belittles her, he degrades her in so many different ways and breaks her down piece by piece by piece. But then this one time she risks her life, that's enough for him.
She calls him out for it too.
Yeah.
She's like, you've got to be fucking
I mean, she doesn't forgive him like easily.
No, I mean, rightfully so.
Well, I felt like she gave in a little bit too easily. When I look at Aelin and Lorcan, and like Aelin put Lorcan through all kinds of stuff when I kind of understood what was going on with Lorcan, and I felt like Aelin needed to go what Lorcan went through. Like, and I don't feel like
that's where I mean that's where I mean that she drug it, like Sarah drug it on too long, because he should have stopped doing that at like a shorter point. But also I feel like because we have to bounce through so many POVs, what's happening with him also feels like it goes on so long because of all the POVs in it. So then it's like, you know, it's hard to do the shift because there needs to be time where she's like, I'm not going to forgive you. But also they could die any day. So Lysandra doesn't get to make him grovel for as long because we don't have the time. So I feel like if Sarah had changed that a little bit, there could be he's being a jerk, then there's a grovel, and then they're over it, whereas it kind of gets smushed a little just because of pace wise. I don't know. That's how I feel with it, because I think she's still like, he still suffers, but then like we're almost dead, so she's like, I'm not going to hold this, like whatever, you know. I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah,
Plus,
and I
I
think it was hard for Sarah probably to like pace the different relationships, because we've got multiple relationships in turmoil. You know, like, because
So
it's
many.
not just being Lysander, it's also got Aelin and Lorcan being, you know, with their problems. So I think for like maybe she felt like, okay, maybe the Lysander Aelin conflict needs to go on longer, or I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's probably like one of the few things in this book where I'm like, maybe do that slightly differently. But
Anyway,
this whole chunk of the story gets a little bit confusing for me, because definitely, like, upon reread, I had forgotten that they aren't in Orinth the whole time. Like, it says like he's organizing, you know, he's got all these different armies coming together, and he's moving the troops to the Bane's camp in the plain of Theralis. Winter has fallen, so he thinks that he's grateful that the cold and snow might hinder Erewhon's army. And so in the meantime, this is when we're seeing, obviously nobody has noticed yet that Lysander is pretending to be Aelin.
right.
And so they're troubled that Aelin has not displayed her magic. So now they're camped in the Staghorn Mountains. And they have a scouting party that finds 6 Valg soldiers in the mountain pass. The party kills 5, captures 1 to interrogate for information. And so I'm wondering, because it says the group travels to Alsbrook Castle and reunites with Evangeline. I'm wondering if that's close by the Staghorn Mountains.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Is that because that's one of the Lord's homes? Isn't it?
That's Ren's.
Yeah, Ren and Murtaugh.
Yeah. This is Alsbrook Castle. Yeah.
Why we always gotta kill the Murtaugh, Taji? Why we always gotta kill them? Sorry, I didn't go there.
No, it's all good.
That was one. That one hurt. Yes, because she was with them. Okay.
And so then, while in Alsbrook, Aelin receives a letter from Killian, one of his Bane commanders, telling him that Morath's troops have made landfall in a city called Eldris and has destroyed it. I think Eldris, if I'm not mistaken, is like a coastal city in Terrasen, I think. But I'd have to look at the map, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, so then Lysander and a force go to meet the army that destroyed Eldris, and they do manage to defeat the 5,000 soldiers. I remember that scene. But again, it's like, I feel like that battle was a bit of like winning by the skin of their teeth. Like this is definitely a part of the book that's like a struggle to get through. So then they receive a message from Darrow, Lord Darrow, requesting their presence the next day. At their meeting, he tells them they're moving the army to Orinth. A Valg soldier attacks them in the tent, determines that Lysander is not Aelin because of her blood. He relays the message to other Valg through a silent bond, and Aelin kills him before he can expose Lysander to the troops. So this is when we get Nox. Nox comes back into the story from book 1. Yeah. So he's revealed to be a rebel even during the King's Champion tournament. The lords and their men are, And so remember, Aelin and them, they don't want to go to Orinth yet, right? I can't remember what they wanted to do specifically, but they didn't want to go to Orinth right away. And so they drugged the lords and their men so that they can just move out and they won't have a confrontation. Oh, because they want to go to Paranth. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Because I think they had heard that more Morath soldiers were going to be there. And so, they finally reach Paranth. The Morath soldiers are there. This is another losing battle. In an attempt to inspire the troops, Lysander shifts into Aelin and enters the battlefield. She's injured by an Ilkin, and the army is forced to retreat after Iron Teeth witches arrive with witch towers and destroy 4,000 of Aedion's soldiers.
Right.
Man, this is just a tough part of the story.
Yeah.
As I'm looking at this synopsis, I'm like, yep, this is rough. And so Lysandra wakes up 2 days later, learns from Aelin that Paranth has been conquered, and the army, they're on the run. Right. They're just on the run at this point, and their thinking is like, let's just go to Orinth, and let's just have all of our forces go there. That's probably going to be the best course of action. Oh, and then this is when Aelin apologizes, because this was when she got injured by the Ilkin. So this is when Lysandra's like, okay, so you're only apologizing because I almost died.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Make it make sense.
But then we finally this is where Rolf shows up.
We are getting there. Yes, we're getting there.
Because I was like, Rolf shows up to them, or he shows up the other place. I think he shows up here.
Yes, he shows up. He's about to show up. So we have they're making for Orinth. Ren and Darrow have reached them. Darrow strips Aelin of his rank. Ooh, this was also tough too, because then threatens to execute Lysandra if she shifts into Aelin again. He demands the sword of Orinth back. Yeah, that was like, I'm like, Darrow, as if you couldn't get much worse.
Right.
Like,
kicking a man while he's down, plus Darrow's just a
and then of course there's like a redemption for him at the end, but I'm like, girl
no.
I know, right? And so yeah, this is when they're battling Morath, and Rolf shows up with the Mycenians and buys them time to run to Orinth on their boats. And then Manon and the Krakens receive the call for aid. So that's everything for this chunk of the story.
Right.
Yeah, just so much struggle, so much battling, so much just like, war things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of battles in this book. It's very battle heavy compared to pretty much any other Sarah J. Maas book that I can think of off the top of my head. I think this one might be the most battle heavy, strategic heavy book. Yeah.
Even just in this POV alone, like, all of these different little battles, and then finally when we get to the big battle at the end.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, if this ever got turned into like a screenplay or a show, imagine the production value involved in like bringing all these armies and these battle scenes together. Like, it's just huge, It
would be epic, but it would be a lot.
I can't even imagine. You
would need to
Stacey. I don't know about that. I don't know about hating him more than Maeve.
Rank it up there, though.
He's pretty bad. Like the Empire of Storms, the way he talks to Aelin and Lysandra, that's pretty bad. And then it's just when he strips Aelin of his title and stuff. But no, definitely.
I don't know. So to play devil's advocate of this, though, he hasn't seen much proof of their of what they're trying to do being helpful.
Yeah.
Like all it's been is an ask of their men, and they were staying safe as much as they knew. Obviously we know that if Erewhon wins, he takes over the world. But as far as it was for them, like,
oh no, Jen!
Did I freeze? I was like, did
I She'll come back. She'll come back.
Yeah.
Because I know she has issues with her internet every now and then. But no, that is a good point though about like why he strips him of his rank. Like I do get it from Darrow's point of view. It's just, again, very hard to read about. Just very hard to read about like Aelin and Lysandra's struggles in general. But it's funny because like even though Killian ends up getting the rank, like he still goes to Aelin and he's like, are we doing this? Like,
And I'm a firm believer in two things. Like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So that's where I take umbrage with him. Like the way he goes about doing things. I understand his perspective and why he does what he does in terms of like when it's a battle and like you have to make hard decisions. It's just how he talks to people, and the timing that he chooses. And I feel like Aelin, probably his ego is so bruised throughout all of this because Aelin doesn't share things with him. He's been like left to carry things on his own. And then he's like, we're supposed to be together and nobody's ever telling me. And like, when am I a second-class citizen and all of this? And then all of a sudden he gets stripped of his rank. So his poor ego kicked and hit and beat up. And so I think that's why he like lashes out and acts the way he does, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Plus, I think he is just like a huge thorn. I think he's just like a little niggling, little angry little man, this little angry, cranky old man. And every time something happens or somebody's having an issue like Aelin with this whole scene, you know, he's already a man down, and Darrow comes in and kicks him. He's just like, just twists the knife, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
He had a little bit more compassion and care and concern. He did that, you know. Still had the same outcome. Like, we got to move on. Do this because it's greater good.
My point that I was like trying to make is that there always has to be that person who will tell the other side of it, and you know, they just want to keep their people safe, even when we're past that point. Like, we have to do this, or no one will survive if we don't try to fight back. But no, I'm not saying he's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, he's not fun, but also they also have bigger problems. Like, they don't have what they need to hold them off. And some of the things Aelin like wanted to do, they aren't necessarily like gonna hold off until we get reinforcements anyway, you know?
Oh, so, yeah.
And I feel like that's why Aelin is such an ass. He's under a tremendous amount of pressure. He's harboring this secret. They're getting their asses handed to them. And he's kind of bitter because he's like, damn it, Aelin, yet again, you didn't ask me. I'm supposed to be part of your trusted counsel. And you didn't say, hey, here's my plan and here's what I'm going to do. And this is what the outcome. And so I could give some input into this. So like, either you value me or you don't value me, and like, get me out of it. Now you've stuck me in this situation and I have to deal with the consequences of the choices you made, but I had no say in it. So I feel like that's the lens he's kind of coming at all this from. And so I kind of understand, but he takes it out on the wrong people and he does it in the wrong ways.
And I think the underlying thing about this whole chunk is that like, they don't know where Aelin is, right? Yeah. So we got to talk about this.
I was like, we're spending too much time on the beginning battles. Like, let's go, man. This is what we're
actually not too far from like part 2, though. Like, I have a couple pretty broad topics, and this is one of them. So we see that we've got Rowan, Aelin, Gabriel, and Lorcan. Okay, they are in a city near Dornell.
Yeah.
They find one of Maeve's commanders, and Rowan brutally tortures him for information. Mm-hmm. They continue in this manner. They're trying to like see if like anybody knows anything about like where Maeve or Cairn or Aelin would be, right? And so they go through several other Fae commanders as well, but they are receiving conflicting reports of Maeve's location, frustrating them. Meanwhile, in Dornell, Aelin feels her mother is with her, telling her to be brave and not to yield. Another really hard part of the story to read about. And so I love this part though, because this is where she does fight back and she's like pounding on the coffin, and we see that it actually like cracks it enough for Rowan to feel her presence through the mating bond.
She breaks through it.
Amazing. And then he realizes Aelin is in Dornell. Well, and then that was the thing too, because remember, Aelin was like, I'm getting a feeling from Dornell, and then they're like, no, she's in this other city. Like, girl, listen to Lead. Listen to her. Like, geez. They're on like this wild goose chase. And so they determine they need to lure Maeve out away from the city. And so then what? They like spread rumors that there's wordstone collars, like near the coast or something. Yeah. So like
almost leading her to try to kill herself. So that's not great.
Yeah, I know. I was like, ooh, I see what you're doing, but oh no. And so then this is when they end up going to the war camp that Maeve has created. It sounds like the camp like is surrounding Dornell. Or like, yeah, something like that. It's like it's outside of the city gates or whatever. And so what we're seeing is like, and Fenris has been with her this whole time.
Yeah.
And we see there's that whole scene where like Connell is forced to kill himself by Maeve because Maeve is doing anything she can to try to get Aelin to break, and so she's thinking,
so frustrating that there's no like map of that part. Like, it's so frustrating that there isn't like a pop out map of it, because
of Wendlin, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, why don't we ever get a map of Wendlin? Like that's so because especially in like Air of Fire, because that whole book.
They still keep all of this over here. We don't even go to any of this. And
I know
places that get referenced. We literally are in Wendlin for
and it says to Wendlin.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you have a pop-out map? Like that's what you do. You say to Wendlin and turn the page and have a pop-up map here for where we're at.
Yeah, I agree. I always found it weird that we never get to see what Wendlin looks like.
Yeah. I just wonder, she thinks about things in such detail. I wonder if it's strategic. Like if she didn't give it to us for a reason, and maybe when we do get it, we'll see. Maybe it'll give clues to things. I don't know, because there has to be a reason why.
Because in ACOTAR we start with just a map of here, and in later books, when the other side is mentioned, we get a full map and we get to see that.
I know. So I wish they would have like made Aurelia maybe a little smaller, or like a different page of Wendlin, or
like. She says in an interview that like there are more things she knows. You can just choose to not have them on the map because she's like, the more we learn, they'll fill it in. These places that get mentioned in every chapter, like it would have been nice to see like where we are, especially because like, you know, Maeve is she's gonna go to Morath in a little bit. You know, it's like it'd be nice to see like she went from here to here. This is how far away she is. Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, I got a question. So since we're in that finding Aelin, so you know when Maeve was torturing Aelin and she was in the box and she would go into her mind and she would show her things and she was revealing the whole, like her whole history about the three brothers, the Vlog Kings, or whatever, the whole scene, right?
Yeah.
So I honed in on where she talks about her husband and his two brothers and how she surpassed their skill set, and how one of them, she says, specifically was broken and he crawled into the mountain, right? And he was left there as they all moved on to other worlds. And I don't know why my mind went to, is that the bone carver? When you connect it with the other, because it says the third remained trapped, his power nearly broken. He crawled off into the depths of the earth, and the victorious queen spent her long lost existence. That's Maeve. And then she then goes on to talk about that. So when I read that, I was like, because you know how like in ACOTAR, they go into the mountain, right, where that is. And I was like, is that
in Wings of Ruin, we talk about like in our video for that, we talked about who the bone carver's related to, because he has a brother and a sister.
Yes.
And again, it's not that couldn't be a connect to another world, but the bone carver specifically has a name. I can't remember the name right now, but like he has a name and he has a brother and a sister, and he's like afraid of them. So,
so just maybe I'm going off in the left field, but the brother and the sister, could it be the one of these vlogs? And they refer to Maeve as their sister when they're referring to, you know, Maeve.
I have a different guess. I mean, I can't tell you whether you're right or wrong. I'm not telling you you're right or wrong. But my guess of it is that the bone carver to me very well could be one of these gods that gets kicked out. Like that's there's all the gods who get kicked out, and they don't get to go to the world they want to. They have to go to the world of death,
right?
You know, where she puts them. And I don't know. My guess is like it. What if there was three of those gods that end up in the same world? So it's like a brother and a sister and a brother, you know, and they're in the ACOTAR world or whatever. But I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think there's lots of things that ended up in mountains who are from other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Absolutely.
But I just thought that it gave us lots of information in that scene, because Maeve revealed a lot and told a lot about herself and how she came into her power and what she learned from the library. So I just thought it was like, oh, this is packed filled with like clues and like little Easter eggs. Go ahead, Jen.
I also wanted to ask like what is similar and what's different about the two stories we've seen now, because in Tower of Dawn we get told a story, you know, about where she came from,
the Karen Queen.
Yep. And then we get told it from Maeve's POV, of course, her sanitized version. So just wondering.
And also, let's also think about, I'll bring this up a little bit later when we talk about connections and theories, but let's think about like how significant the number 3 is. We've got 3 Vald Kings. We have 3 word keys. We have 3 Cauldron Feet in the ACOTAR series.
3 human queens, right? Don't we have 3 human queens?
Say that again.
There's two
Maeve
human
isn't
queens.
a queen.
Huh?
Maeve isn't a queen.
Uh,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
there's
you're
there's
human
two
queens.
fake queens. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
saying there's two fake queens. I was thinking about things because
And Maeve made herself a third one.
third one. Yeah. Mhm.
And so then I just want to kind of keep trucking along here because we're
Yep.
getting close to the end of part one. But
We rescue Aelin. That's the point. Let's talk about it.
yeah, let's talk about Aelin. So we have, she, like you said, she's planting these false memories and like telling Aelin a story, and then Maeve mentions that a bell collar has been found and she's going to go retrieve it. However, Rowan knew Maeve would want a collar. So remember, there's the scene where they go to this tavern. They spread fake rumors of a captured Val prince. There, she finds Fae soldiers, asks about Cairn. Nothing is forthcoming until a Fae female named Asar follows her and mentions that Maeve has left where Cairn is stationed. Deduces that Aelin is with Rowan and Lorcan, tells her she is helping because she met Aelin before in Air of Fire.
Right.
So then we have the whole scene in the tent with Cairn. Yeah.
Well, the point of that is of like Maeve's people are rebelling. It isn't just like one person, right, who doesn't like her. Like they're rebelling against her.
Yeah.
Against and is that like she's losing her like hold over them, over everybody?
Well, and that comes later when Aelin sends that letter.
Yep. But it starts
to her cousins.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Who does she send it to?
It's to
But it's starting already is kind of the point.
Yeah. And I also honed in on the fact that when Aelin went and was like inquiring about Cairn, that they didn't give her the information more out of a concern for her. They were like, "You listen, forget about him. You do not want to, be involved with somebody like him." So I guess I honed in on that piece of it.
Mm-hmm. And so let's just go ahead and talk about this whole scene where they finally rescue her. And it's interesting because I had forgotten a lot of details about this scene. I just vaguely remembered like Aelin running through the camp. And so we get that whole scene where like she's trying to goad Cairn into killing her before he can use the fire to kill her.
Yeah.
And so then Fenris freaking breaks his blood oath.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, and attacks Cairn, like, this whole scene, so that she can run, so that, she can get out. And then meanwhile, Rowan has gotten into the camp, but he must be coming from like a different direction or something because they miss each other. And then like Aelin just keeps running, finds Lorcan and
I didn't remember it was Lorcan was the one who found her. For whatever reason, I had it being someone else that found her and like didn't know what to do and was trying to help her get the the mask off when she was like take it off and like,
oh my God, stop.
Like,
yeah.
Like, what do I do? After their complicated history. So it was just so heart-wrenching.
So heart-wrenching. And in my mind, I thought that Rowan was the one to find her while she was running.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think I just wanted it to be that way. I just wanted Rowan to be the one to find her. But anyway,
they just are like, to me, it's kind of like, it's like Lorcan is like out there protecting a lead.
Yeah.
And Aelin is just like running by. And it's like, oh my God.
And I wanted to say, like, Lorcan, do something. But Lorcan was like, shouldn't be me. Like, I don't know, somebody else come along. I'm like,
well, he was like, I don't know what to, like, holy shit, these locks are like insane. Like, I don't know what to do. And like, it didn't even cross my mind to use word marks.
Word marks.
I was like, oh shit, how are they gonna do, get her out of this? And she's just screaming to take it off, and I'm dying.
Start through the freaking camp. Like I didn't remember any of that. And I was just like, oh my God, this is horrible,
Yeah. And then and Fenris is dying. And so
that's right.
Which she, I love that moment though. She's like, I wanted to give it to Aelin first, Oh,
with Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, Jen. I hope did you freeze again? But what I was gonna say, as we're getting past this scene, Fenris is saved by swearing the blood oath.
Yeah.
Aelin, and oh my God, Rowan is the ultimate like touch her and you die Daddy.
Love
The way
Skins him.
him.
He skins him. He literally skins. I'm like, somebody skin a man for me, you know?
We all need a Rowan in our lives. Where's my hero?
Literally.
oh my God, like that scene, oh my God, so freaking iconic. Like
And I
they're
think
like
she was so vulnerable, and she had this mask on, and Lorcan is standing there like, what the hell do I do? No one knows what to do. And like Rowan is like, he comes in and he's like, okay. He's like, he just like envelops her in just everything. You know what I mean? And like, feel like he just takes control, calms her, and does what he needs to do, but does it in a way that's not overpowering and overbearing, but it's just what she needed. He sensed it out and was like perfect in that moment. I felt like.
And I love this part of the story where, you know, obviously Aelin is broken and Rowan is like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, I need her to come back to me, but I get, you know, and so then the little folks show up.
That's
I
right.
love this scene where they take them into like this cavern, this cave.
I forgot about that.
Like, this is such a cool scene to me. Like, they're in this cave, they're in this cavern, and then they eventually like get this boat for them.
Yeah.
Like, try to get them to the coast. Like, that scene is so vivid to me. Like, I can imagine like the little folk and just like and then, oh my God, then Aelin is slowly coming back to herself. And when she's like, hey, let's stop the boat so we can go like raid this, like
rob the cave.
Yeah.
Like, this might be for dead people, but we're gonna rob it. Like, and then they get the rings.
No good.
I've seen some like fan art of her like in the pool, like glowing.
Yes.
Feeling her.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite pieces of fan art I've seen someone do. So beautiful.
That is such a vivid scene.
But that's where she finds the armor too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's where she gets the gold armor.
That must be. Is that in? Yeah.
Yeah. That's where she gets that.
Because they're all picking up armor for, you know, the different Fae warriors and having some issues because they're so big, tall, and strong, you know.
I don't know if you guys mentioned it either while I was gone, but her, like, all this time too, she's off from what like happened to her, of course, but also just from the immense weight of the power that she's been burrowing into the entire time she's been captured. So she's a little bit like off from that too, just from everything she's like holding. Yeah. You know, she's just holding in and she's just a bottle. Yeah. Shaking, you know. It's very
absolutely. And we just mentioned like how Rowan is the ultimate toucher and you die daddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know. He's my book husband, by the way.
Oh, man, absolutely.
Love him.
Do not ask me at a sore point if I pick Rowan or Reese because I cannot answer you. I can't answer you.
Yeah.
No, I can't, because there are very distinct reasons why I like both men. And I mean, I've read Reese the most, but every time we come back to this, I'm like, if I spent the same amount of page time with Rowan as I did with Reese, I might like Rowan more.
Yeah. They're just two different. They're two different characters, two different personalities for sure. And so then then we do get to the coast. And then this is where Aelin makes Lorcan swear the blood oath now. But we know that he's only doing it for a lead.
Totally.
Yeah. Aelin does too.
Yeah, Aelin knows.
And I love when she like whispered to him, she's like, and when she's like, there's a chance, like, and she's like, trust me, there's a chance. And I'm like, she gave him that phone because he was like, it's all done anyway, it doesn't even matter. And she's like, it's not done. I was like, oh, you know, that's how it was. I felt differently about that exchange, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So our last chunk before part 2 is this whole part. Where we finally, so now we're getting to Kale and Irene's POV and then how Aelin's group meets up with them. And what was I going to say? We have Kale and the Coggan's army. They've been defending his homeland against Erewhon's forces for 5 days. Aelin and Kale reunite, which that scene Any reunions with Kale after Tower
I
of
know.
Dawn, like it gets me just because
I
like
know.
Aelin says something like I knew you'd do it or something.
I know.
Like dead. Absolutely dead.
It's
And
so beautiful on both sides because first, you know, we look back like first he felt like shit for, you know, what he, you know, for
What he did.
what's her face because she died. Nahemia, even though it was her, she was going to die the whole time. Like he feels horrible about that. Then she feels horrible about, you know, his spine problems and all these things. And it's just angry person about like what's going on. And now it's just like he's literally just been healed of so much of that and has went through his journey. She's just went through this journey. And now they fully can come back with like nothing, with no like anger between. And then for him to come back straight up with this awesome lady that she already loves and is just like, hey, look who I married. And it's just like, oh dude, you did so good. You did so good.
yeah, seeing him at
so
peace
amazing.
too,
Yeah.
like that's just such a huge difference from how they left him in Queen of
Yeah.
Shadows is when they all split up, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, like what a huge difference. Like, well, his character arc in general is just
Yeah.
incredible.
I'm gonna make a controversial statement. It's not that controversial, but 2 POVs or 1 POV that like we don't need. I'm not saying I hate it. We don't need Nezrin's POV in this. In my opinion, this is someone that could have been cut to give more to someone else. Again, don't dislike her, but if there is a flabby POV that could be cut, I personally think that it's Nezrin because there isn't much that happens with her separate from another character that we wouldn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. And every time we would go to a Nezrin, I'd be like, okay, what am I getting from this chapter of hers? Mm-hmm. Again, not that I dislike her. I don't have any problems against Nezrin. I liked her character in, you know, Tower of Dawn when we've seen her. Mm-hmm. But the things that she does when with Sartak, again, I love them. But like, there are things we could hear about afterwards and like would have been fine. Mm-hmm. And give more page time to someone else.
For me, it just read as like Easter eggs for people that like love their romance and just like love their part of Tower of Dawn. And I do think I liked getting her POV just because she's our window into the Coggins army. Like she's really our window into that side of it and how they finally joined up with Kale and now they're all in Aniel. But yeah, I agree. Maybe it wasn't the most necessary POV, but I didn't hate it.
I'm just speaking purely for cutting some POV wise. If there's ones that could be, that's one that we could find out what they know through someone else's POV when they're talking to them. And sometimes it would be like we would go to her and be like, oh, I didn't need this. Like I think there's one battle that they do where they're not around anybody else. One that's in the sky or whatever.
Yes.
When they're battling some witches.
Well, the dam.
But
that had to be from Nesrin's POV. Like them discovering that the dam was breaking.
Right.
You know. But yeah. No, I get it.
Anyway.
Aelin finally, you know, meeting Irene and then seeing that she had the note all this time.
Yes. That's one of my favorite scenes.
See, and that's why, like, this is why I don't understand people who just do not read the Assassin's Blade. Mm-hmm. Or like some people who just don't read Tower of Dawn. I'm like, you guys are missing so much.
Mm-hmm. The only story I read in Assassin's Blade was Irene's, so I'll say that.
And that one's the shortest.
Yeah. But they all show up. Like Sarah didn't write it just for nothing. That's the thing. Like she didn't write it just for nothing. Every one of those people is crucial to us in the end. So totally agree with that. Someday I will, but I agree with this, Amanda, so much. It always pays to be kind and helpful because this is the book where everything comes back tenfold. And some people Aelin has to write to call it in. And some people she's just earned that with them. And like, for real, I know Kale does a lot of the heavy lifting of winning her over there. But for real, like if Aelin hadn't done that, hadn't given her the money, encouraged her to go there, we would not have our saving grace. We do not win this without Irene.
No.
She wins it.
Yeah.
100%.
Makes it all for us.
Yeah.
It goes to show that you have no idea how small, like little interactions that you don't ever think about, again, make huge impacts on other people's lives, and then thus big lasting impacts on the whole battle as a whole, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are like examples of that through Assassin's Blade that we see that come up with everybody sort of coming together, and that's why it's essential to read that, to see how it goes out, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like I can't do a reread of this series without also reading the Assassin's Blade. Like I need everything. I need it. I need it all. But I want to just continue on with this. So we have the battle in Aniel. Aelin still hasn't used her power. Remember, this is like a whole thing. People are, you know, like Rowan especially is like, why? Like she's not using it. What's going on? Well, I think he's the one that comes to the realization she's been burrowing this whole time.
Yeah.
And so we see that Morath's
forces.
This is when we see the dam. Morath's forces are moved to break Aniel's dam and flood the field, which is why, you know, Nesrin and Sartok are there. Lead steals Farasha.
And Lorcan's down, and she goes.
Lorcan! Wait a minute. Lorcan being reckless and like fighting the Valg, and he's like, he was like, I have nothing to live for. So he's just fighting, and then he gets dead.
She pretty much didn't care whether he came out off of the battlefield. Yeah. So of course he's like going there. He's like, I have nothing to live for. You know, his male sadness.
Yep. I love how she came when she like heard what came down to give a message or whatever, and she's looking at her, she's like, where's Lorcan? And everybody's like, whoop. She like looked at each one of them and she's like, where is Lorcan? Like she
exactly.
She was not playing with them. She was like, oh, no. I'm going to get my man.
But yeah, that was like the one time I was ever like mad at a lead, like just for saying that. I get that she's so pissed at him, but don't say that you don't care if he comes off the battlefield. Jesus.
Especially when it's not true. It's so obviously not true. She cares so much.
I go back to this of like, I understand like he needed a cold shoulder at the beginning of this. Yeah. Like there were things he needed a cold shoulder. But let's not forget that, like, he was blood oathed while he was doing a lot of this. And he was obsessed with Maeve and had been, like, blinded by her. Like, so many people had. Literally an entire race of people is blinded by this woman. And so I know what he did, like, hurt you. Like, I get it, bitch. I get it, girl. I love you. But also, you are taking it too much to heart at the point we are at in our lives here. Like, the cold shoulder on the trip to get Aelin, fine. Where we're at now, you're done. Like, we're done now. Like, we're done now because we could die anytime. But that's okay. It leads to the best save of the entire book.
Literally.
Her riding out to get him, and it's like, you're going to get on this fucking horse. And it's like, you got to let me go. And she's like, no, I'm fucking not. And then it leads to this, which is the best scene in the book.
Oh my God.
She does this for a lead.
It's the one scene that I always remember, like it's rent-free in my mind. Like I think there's a fan art that I specifically always remember of this scene where she's like pulling him up onto the horse.
Yep.
With her. Oh my God. So iconic.
Yeah.
And he tries to let her go, and she's like, okay, well, if you're letting go, we're getting off this horse. I'm following too.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh shit.
Also, I told Crystal that the next pony that I get, I want a Farasha.
Yes!
And she's like, what does she look like? We're like, well, she's black on black, but that's what I would like. I would like a mini Farasha for my collection because I love her so much.
And I love how she talks to her. Like, she's just like, fly, Farasha.
Yes!
You fly. And I was like sobbing. I was like, Farasha.
Oh, like, and Farasha flew.
And she flew. She flew.
Love it.
This was one while I was sewing, and I was like, I can't see anymore. I can't see what I'm doing. But
and so then the dam breaks.
Yeah.
And Miss Aelin
burns it all.
Aelin has to use all of that power.
Yep.
As she was saving up for Maeve. As she was with Maeve, right? It was 3 months worth. Did you hone in on that?
Yes, 3 months of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like such, man,
Save them all though.
arguably
Oh.
arguably the most epic scene in the book. I know that's hard to say, but like
No,
There were so many, but yeah, I get it.
well, there's also this one, but we'll get.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
There's also this one. I know. I just have
Come
right
on.
here. No, it's the best. It's the best. It's the most moving. It has your like. You're not expecting it to be the biggest point. That's why it's so impactful to me. Why when I think of this book, like that's the scene that I see is like I see this one when I first think of
Same,
Aelin.
yes.
I see this scene. And I also think it's good because if she had saved that for Maeve, like that would have been her like kamikaze kill. You know what I mean? Like if she had kept all that burrowed power and like that was going to be like the death blow move, like that's not how we ended up doing this, you know? It isn't going to be Aelin who actually does it anyway, as we'll see, but like
Yeah.
You know, it was a good idea. It's good that that's what she was doing, but it also like would have been kind of a like I'm taking you out with me move, which is what she thinks she's going to have to do at, you know, to do lock but
And I do think that this is the one scene in the book, I would say, where my heart is just pounding out of my chest.
Oh God,
like,
yeah.
It is talking about suspense. Like, yeah.
This is when her rapid POV changes are amazing.
Yes.
Or where you don't have to have a new chapter. Like when you have third person point of view and you don't have to change like chapter to do that, which it can be a little disconcerting when you're like listening, but it also, it just keeps that momentum going because you're bouncing from, you know, Aelin, we're seeing like Rowan's like, oh my God, where did she go? We're seeing, you know, Lorcan is like, what's she doing? Like, you're just bouncing around and you can't handle it, you know. It's
it adds to the excitement of it and the buildup of all of that, you know.
Yeah.
So now that we are at the end of part 1, I do want to take a short intermission.
Sure.
So I'm gonna let's come back at 6:25.
Okay.
So that's just about 5 minutes. Yeah, just about 5 minutes.
That's good.
So do what you need to do, and we'll be back to talk about part 2, which is Gods and Gates.
had to get my snack.
Yep.
Is it like blizzard conditions there, Jen?
No, it's just winter.
Spoken to like it was 73 here today. So
Yeah, no, it's -6, feels like -20.
oh my God. I don't even think I've ever been in that kind of weather. I wouldn't know what to do. Like, oh, what do I do?
No.
We get an inch of snow here probably like once a year, and the whole county shuts down for like a week. We don't know what to do either.
I mean, it snowed for like 4 days.
Straight?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
But we didn't have a blizzard though. You don't always have a blizzard when it is. It was just steady snow. And it was 32 while it was snowing. But now, like, you know, the precipitations went by and now it's like -10.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the deep freeze. I thought we were going to have like snowy, nice 30 degrees on Christmas and almost made it. It's -10 and I have the check engine light came on and my auto start stopped working. So I was like, are you kidding me?
Gosh.
Serious. Of course it would. Murphy's Law.
It's okay.
All right. We are back. Okay. Woo! That intermission was needed. Like I feel like we just sped through like 500 pages.
Well, that's okay.
We're making good time.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're trucking along. So I'm very excited to talk about this whole chunk of the book because I had completely forgotten about this upon reread. So it was like a brand new twist for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't, and then I was like reading it and I'm like, how the hell could I forget
Oh no.
about this whole chunk of the book? It's so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely obsessed with this whole thing. We've also got Erewhon in the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And oh man, I love it. I love
Shape
it.
shifting all comes into play. But you know what though?
Yes.
Like, so there's so much to digest in this that I'm not surprised. I mean, this is like 1,000 pages. Like you're gonna you know, I probably will read it again. And as I read it again, I'm like, how did I miss that the second time around? You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm always gonna take away stuff, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So I love that, like, you know, he sneaks in as a mouse, and then he discovers that Maeve has, you know, she's trying to join forces with Erewhon, witnesses a conversation where she reveals her true identity.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's just like, so how long are you going to stay in that pathetic form?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Dorian's like, oh shit, I'm just a mouse.
Very interesting. Like he literally gets as small as like a fruit fly at one point in this, which I mean, magically super cool, but also magic because where is the physics of this? Like I can understand werewolf shifters and even like even the mouse, but like where does your density go? The fact that you went the size of a fruit fly, I feel like you should be like 10,000.
At that point, everything's like atomic.
Right? Anyway, not important at all. Not important at all.
No,
but I also like, that's weird.
Well, and what's crazy about Dorian's magic and abilities is that, you know, he gets this very small part of essentially Falcon's ability. And yet, because Dorian is so powerful himself, he's able to develop that small little piece into, he essentially has the same power as Lysandra. He can shapeshift into probably a big old sea monster too, just like she can.
So help me understand. So is it that when he comes into contact with people that have other magical powers, he's able to, like through osmosis, assume that? Or he's coming into his own power and learning the extent, like Aelin drops in and she burrows into the depths of her power to figure out how deep she can go and how powerful she can become? Because I didn't really understand how that developed for Dorian. Does it make sense?
So what happened is before he killed the spider, there was a little paragraph that said he went into the spider's mind and took it. He literally like took that ability from the Stygian spider before he killed it.
He just had to learn how to harness it.
Yeah.
And how to, like, that's why he then started practicing it right away.
Yeah, which then plays into how his whole thing with Maeve ends, because he's been developing this power too of being able to like take things from people or like kind of control their minds in a way. So that's a very interesting connection too.
And I think it's also kind of that like unknown side effect of like, you know, his mother bred with who was possessed, you know what I mean? Like,
Val, yeah.
And that's mixed with the fact that his line already has a little bit of the like feline in him too. So he already like has a little bit of that, and then it's mixed with being bred with, you know, a possessed person. So it's that thing of like he's himself, you know, like he's a completely unique being. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, and I agree that he feels more powerful than Aelin because he has so many different abilities. He can harness like ice and fire and like all kinds of like crazy shit. And now he's a shapeshifter too. And yeah, I mean, and like you said, Jen, it's because of like his lineage specifically too.
Yeah.
But it's like crazy how much power Dorian has.
And that's why I think Dorian is going to be a significant, because at the beginning when we first started doing this reread, I was like, Aelin is going to play a role in this future of like what this is going to look like. We're going to need her. But I really am now starting to think it's going to be Dorian, because Dorian is so powerful. He is bringing so much to the table.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so yeah, like this whole thing with Maeve. All right. Yeah. And then remember, like, there's this whole thing with like Erewhon wanting some of her Karen Kui, like some of those spiders to be possessed by Val princesses. And it's just, this is just an interesting part of the story because it's like almost like Maeve gets a bit humanized, you know, because it's like
it is.
There are scenes where she's talking about like how much these handmaidens really do mean to her, and like how much what was I gonna say?
Is
like
it
like she feels for them? Like it's
so I feel like it feels like that while we're reading it, and it's like her kind of grudgingly sharing things with him. But then when she like snaps on him,
oh yeah,
that's why for me it feels like it's him getting little pieces out of her so that it feels genuine. But then when she's like, I gotcha, he's like, haha, I laid a trap for you.
He's like, I got you.
So like, I remember the very first time I read it, I was like, don't trust her. And then you kind of are like, oh, but maybe she's tired of how this is playing out. I don't know. And I'd forgotten about like kind of like the double trap. When I was reading it this time, I feel like she just has read him and done, you know, like she knows what her spies have told her about him and who he is, and that he has like that compassionate side, that he very easily feels compassion for women if they will show that, like that to him. That's been a pattern of him falling for strong, but women who, you know, like strong women, but who have a tender side. I don't know. I feel like it's her using her master manipulator self that she is and showing him what she thinks he wants to see. But because he's laid this trap the whole time, he never buys it. I don't know. That's just
the only thing I'll say in this like vulnerability that she's showing is that it does make her a more interesting villain than let's say the King of Highburn. He's a basic bitch. He's a basic bitch, but like Maeve to me does have some kind of interesting layers to her, like from her origins to like where she is now. But yeah, absolutely, she's manipulating the shit out of him, trying to.
And so it's also interesting hearing this story from her POV. You know, like kind of like we said, like we've heard this story like 3 times, kind of, right? Like we heard in Tower of Dawn, we heard her tell Aelin the version she's telling, and now we're hearing her talk with Dorian. And so we're seeing all these like, so it's like, what is the truth when we distill all it down? Which parts were real? And then we also hear her talking with her brother-in-law. And we see that aspect too. So it's like we kind of, you know, I feel like between all of the information we gather, we can kind of distill down to like what stuff is true and what is fantasy and what is legend and what is made bigger. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does.
I think
So
it's
this is the part of the story that was brought up earlier, that like we do see that Aelin's letter to Doranel had the desired effect. Maeve's armies have abandoned her. She is no longer Queen of Doranel. Erewhon plans to bring his brothers back. And so then, yeah, like this is the whole thing of like the double gotcha, like Maeve trying to trap him, and then Dorian's like, nope, I've been laying a trap the whole time.
Yeah.
And let's see.
He's learned so much. I'm so proud of him. Like, he's fallen into traps before, and this time he's like, not today, bitch. I was ready.
I literally screamed. I screamed at that part.
Yep.
Oh man.
We're like, Dorian, you're not falling for this, right? Like, you're not. And he's like,
nope.
There was a moment where you felt like, oh no, he did get trapped. And then he's like,
right.
Nope.
Well, because the way he set it up, like if she had been telling the truth, then he wouldn't have sprung it. You know what I mean? Like he kind of has it set up where like she's gonna hang herself.
Yeah.
Like he's not gonna force it. He's just put the trap, and if she tries to get him, then it'll get her. And that's
what he still gives her a chance. He gives her a chance, which I love about him. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about him is that he's like, you know what? She's done all this shitty stuff, but I'm still gonna give her a chance to be, you know, genuine and help out here. But I'm ready for the Uno reverse card. I will pull that if I need to.
No, I love it. I love it because, well, that's what makes us different from the baddies. And like, that's, I think, a little why it's a little disappointing how, to flash back, how Manon kind of did things where people die. You know, it's that little difference where like Dorian respects what she did, but it's also like, but you could have given a chance more, you know, like
there's a line that they won't cross, you know?
Right, which she still has to do what she has to do, and she's there to like prove it. But with him, it's like, I have no problem trying to take this lady down, but I'm also not going to kill her without cause. Or I mean, he doesn't kill her, but like what's happening? So
well, and what's iconic too is that there's like he lays two traps for Maeve, because the first one is like the whole deal where it's like, hey, I'll marry you, like, you know, in exchange for the banishment of the Valg, Dorian will marry her, give her Adarlan as a new kingdom to rule, because he just wants her help to get the word key. So then he does get the word key, and then that's when the takeover of the mind happens, and then that's when he blocks her ability to make portals and leaves with all three word keys, destroying Morath behind him.
He's like,
with her brother-in-law.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah.
So just, oh man, such a great little chunk of the story.
It does kind of like, it is kind of that thing though of like, now he for sure has like cemented that those two will be working together though, which will come up to us. So it's like they don't have control of these word keys, which is the number one thing, but also now they're working together.
Right.
So there's that. But yay, Dorian. Yes.
Love him. Dorian. Love him. You know, and I think Jen, you brought this up of like, Dorian really is kind of the only man in the story who has like these really epic moments, and like, but you know what? I get it.
Yep.
I get it. And like Dorian needed these wins. You know,
Dorian's an epic dude.
He is
epic dude. Yeah.
He absolutely is.
And it's the way she's built it though. She does it like all great fantasies of like, there might be a chosen one. In this case, there's more than one, but like there might be a chosen one, but they're only who they are because of everybody. Like he's the one who's real juiced up at this point. He's got that, but like he's only who he is because of all these people along the way, you know, because he had who he had. And I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so
now now we're getting to a part where more and more people are starting to converge upon Terrasen.
Yes.
Orinth specifically. So now we have Manon and the 13 and the Krakens. They've finally all united, and so now they've finally made it to Terrasen. So this is really getting to the big. This really is the big battle. This big battle just kind of happens over several days and several chapters and stuff. Yeah. It goes on for a while. We just get other POVs at the same time. But it says Aelin and his forces. Oh, I love this. Remember when they set up the trap to destroy 2 of the 3 witch towers?
Yeah.
Crippling the third. So they have to repair the third one. Morath does. So Morath is outnumbering his force with 100,000 soldiers at this point. Aelin learns of the siege in Orinth from Vernon. Oh yeah, there's that whole scene where they find Vernon. Where do they find him? Is it in Morath or the Farian Gap? I think Morath. Yeah, because they realize that it's like destroyed, but like he's there, and they're like, "Why are you by yourself, dude?" And he's like, "Oh, Erewhon threw me away." Oopsie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oopsie. And so then they're like, Aelin, what do you want to do with him?
That's right.
So just, yep.
And they leave him to starve.
There.
Iconic.
That's right, because she says Aelin. Yep.
Yep. So then we see Orinth readies for battle as the Iron Teeth aerial force approaches, 1,000 strong. Fortunately, Manon arrives at the same time with the 13 and 5,000 Kraken witches. Aelin is injured in the ensuing battle. Dorian reaches Aelin's group with all the word keys. So this is kind of all happening at the same time.
And okay, so when they're getting there though, this is when because now Manon has her group. She's going. Dorian's coming back. It's going there. But now Aelin and them, are they on their way yet?
Yes.
Or they haven't left yet.
They're now on their way.
Okay. And that's with everybody now. Because we have Kale and the all the people from Tower and her, because they met first and now we're going here.
Yes, they met Danielle. They're making the push.
Okay.
And it's a long, long way.
And it's when we hear about this that, and I don't mean to skip, I know I'm kind of skipping, but it's it's on this where they're finding out how dire it's getting and the little folk will show up again.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
And the wolves and stuff? Okay.
Yes, this is all happening at the same time.
Okay. But first, there's Manon coming in with the crew.
Yeah, it sounds like they kind of circled their way around so that they could approach from the opposite direction. Right. To meet up with the Iron Teeth Legion that's there.
And Kale had seen her before because Kale recognized it. Wait, nope, I just said that wrong. Because Aelin had seen her before. Because someone has to recognize that they're on their side, which witches are on their side. Who has seen her?
Well,
Is it Aelin recognize her?
Okay, I know Lysandra, in Queen of Shadows, Lysandra definitely saw her at some point.
Okay.
They were all
together.
Aelin was there too, right?
Because that's when Manon and Aelin have their fight.
Yes.
Yes.
They fight and she's like, I'm not going to kill you today, witch, and that's when she made.
Yes.
When I got this. So yes, Aelin recognizes our precious little Wyvern. I just forgot his name. Abraxos.
Yeah.
Abraxos.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so then we just have to talk about it. I'm sorry. We have to the back of the cover. Jen, you can show it. We have to because this is all happening in the same battle. So we have
because they're doing that.
Say that again.
The bad witches are doing that. They're all sacrificing themselves.
Well, and remember that we see Manon's grandmother is the one showing the witch that's going to yield herself into the witch tower. Yep. So we see that. You know what I want to point out though is I thought this moment, this scene happened later. Like I thought it happened like when Aelin was already there, like everybody's there, like fighting all their battles. But no, it happened. This is around like page like 770 or something. And so we have pain, we have agony. I mean, I can't even say it. I can't even say it.
It's also tough because it feels like it's too early. That's why it feels like it's a final move, because they're leaving her very soon. You know, like they're leaving her to be this queen, like without them.
Yeah.
You know, that feels like a lot, but it also does so much. Like, not only is it actually like, this is going to like save us, this sacrifice, or be a stopgap. It's not even, again, it's not a battle ending thing. Like, it's just gonna carry us until like Aelin can get here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's also like, by them sacrificing this and how much they believe in this, it's that final nail to prove to all the other witches that she's worthy of it, because they have such loyalty to her that they don't even question it, and they're
willing to die for her, die for her cause, you know.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think one of the reasons why I remember it happening later in the book was because I thought it was like the last ditch effort. And it is, in a way, because that witch tower was going to take out who knows how many people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's why too. I was like, oh, this has to be like the last thing that they can do.
And that they're doing it for who they're doing it for. Like, I know it's like they're so fully that the witches aren't just out for witches anymore. You know, it's just like it's such a statement in so many aspects, because not like they know that if Erewhon wins, like, it's bad for all the future witchlings. It's bad for all the things that are going to happen. But it's also like, I just can't believe of seeing them on the side of, like, you know, the Fae and all that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so, it's such a big thing. Like,
it's for a better world.
Yeah.
A better world. Don't even say it. You're going to make me cry.
I know.
But also that Manon can't do it with them.
I know.
Manon doesn't get to do it with them.
No.
That's.
And you know she would have.
Exactly. Because they hurt her. They hurt her so she can't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. What exactly happens that she can't go? Well, I know Abraxos gets injured.
Well, yeah. But one of the girls, like, they like punch her or something.
Oh, right. I think
Astrid, I think.
Wasn't it
like,
Astrid?
Yeah. They punch her, and then by the time she gets up and, like, she knows she can't fly Abraxos there because he's hurt, and all the rest are gone. Like, she can't go.
Also, can we talk about the fact that Abraxos loses his mate?
Oh!
Like, yeah. Not even just, like, pain of the losing the characters, just Abraxos's pain as well, because
that's always a detail that I forget.
Yeah, because Astrid's mount, I can't remember her name.
No, you know what? What sentence like got me though? It always gets me in that scene is when they say that like Astrid is finally with like the hunter and her child.
Yeah, no.
Oh my god! No. And her like lost witchling too.
And the witchling,
right? The child.
Yeah, like sat on the porch and waited for her for years. Like, just kills me. Me. My God. Yeah.
And he's just waiting because she was too ashamed to go back. Like,
he waited his entire life.
Oh my God, I could cry. Don't make me cry.
Oh, I am. I will.
Let's move on.
Why is it that like a side character is what is just gutting me?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Oh.
Well, because we
did so heart-wrenching. Her story is so heart-wrenching, and the whole scene where we actually finally get her story, it's so bloody and gruesome and sad and horrible. And then it's like this final ditch effort in support of Manon. So it's this whole big metaphorical, just beautiful moment. And it's also, you know, the Iron Teeth were, you know, built into these big bad things, but Asterin and the 13, they were always behind Manon, you know,
Yeah.
because they loved her.
Well, and they always believed
when
they always believed that she would make the right choices, even when
Yes.
she wasn't. Even
Yes,
when she was driving us crazy in like Queen of Shadows,
Yes.
like before, when she was punishing her people and like picking people to be sent, like they knew that she would make the right choices. And now that she like is at this spot where she's gonna be a good queen, like they're like, this is the time. We're ready to do this.
Yeah, because there was that whole thing where she like freaking stripped Asterin of
Yes.
me for a second.
Yeah.
Like, no.
And she was going to make her the third, you know, like, or the fourth or whatever. She kept going at it, but they still stood by her. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
they
love
knew.
Yeah.
So they're a part of her, like they're a part of her story. Like she'll be the queen she is because they did this. Because
Yeah.
a good leader needs their pain in their past.
Pain is equally as important as the joys. It teaches us many lessons. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's such a hard scene to read because I remember the first time I read it, I think I screamed and threw the book across the room. But we talk about like an epic scene, just so epic, and I just love it. I love it, but I also hate it.
I cried a lot.
Yeah.
But in my original vlog, there are 2 spots where I've sobbed, and this was the one, and Gabrielle was the other one.
Oh,
Yeah.
That I sobbed in my vlog.
Gabrielle's a whole nother story.
It does feel
Anyway.
like that scene does feel cinematic.
It's so
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can totally see it. We've seen it before, where the friend or the bestie like hurts the person so that they can be the sacrifice instead. Like we've seen it. It's amazing. But anyway, okay, we do have to move on.
We have to move on because I'll just cry. I'm just gonna cry.
I know. Oh gosh, this scene is.
This scene is. Like I remember it took me like when I first read this book, this was a scene that took a lot of brain power for me to like fully comprehend what the fuck is going on.
I forgot about Dorian seeing
Yes.
I did too.
Dorian.
The fact that we forget that, like, you forget, also just made me like the brain fuck of it. That he has nothing is,
and the nameless is my price.
Yeah,
how that
price.
God, I just really love that fucked up man who made a mistake. Like I just really do.
And he remembered his name for a split second when he saw his son's eyes and he said that name.
Yeah.
And that's the name he gave.
Like he never gave up. Like it's one of those characters of like he made such mistake. Like literally all of this is because of certain mistakes. Although granted we can say like everyone was probably still going to try to find a way to do this. Like there's that. Yeah. But like he made the mistake that kicks it all off, but he never lets go. The fact that he said like I had to fight him every minute for all these years. Yeah. I love him. I loved him, and I loved him when he talks with Aelin and is like, I just had to do it, you know? And oh God, I just
like this is so like oh my God, this is a complicated scene to talk about too, because right before this is when like Dorian and Kale they reunite, which is beautiful and amazing. I love their bromance so much. And so then, oh my God, they're having this whole discussion, and like Aelin's like, "Let's vote," and Rowan's like, "Fuck that! I don't want to vote."
I love situations like this. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes,
I love those where like the love is like, "We're not doing this. We're not doing this." And she's like, "Who did you think was gonna do it?" Yeah, you know, it's kind of that thing of like, who did you think was going to do this? He's like, you're both going to do this. But I love him because he's like, can we just try? Because you like Dorian was planning on having to do it too. Like you both could try.
Yes.
You know,
I think it also broke me in that moment when Rowan like fell on his knees and he's like, I can't bear it. I can't bear it. Just like, you know, because we see Rowan as this like powerful ancient being, and he's just like, I can't do it one more time. And then when like they actually go through it and he feels the mating bond stretch and almost break, like, Rowan is like, here we freaking go again. Like, you know,
this is what like this is what tells me that they're like in a like pocket realm, because I don't think it's their like connection. I think it's literally her like being in a place that is like doesn't, you know,
another realm. It is another place. It is.
You know, it isn't her like life force going. It's her like not.
Yeah,
in his same universe for a while, right?
Yeah.
But I also love that, like, they also expect her to try to do it on her own anyway. Like,
well, of course,
they
always know, Aelin. They know.
Yeah,
they're not stupid. Like but something I want to bring up about this whole forging the lock situation is, you know, and I brought up the number 3 before earlier in the live show. What's interesting is that when we see these 3 word keys coming together to forge a lock, it is supposed to, you know, take. If Aelin would have done it by herself, it would have taken her life force completely. In Act of War, we see a similar thing happen where Rhys puts the cauldron back together and it kills him.
Yeah.
So I find that to be very interesting how those 2 worlds are like work. You know. But what else was I gonna say? I don't know. I forgot. But yeah, that was like a big connection that like popped into my mind of like, oh yeah, like that took Rhys. Like, you know.
Yeah, she's mentioning it. The tattoo that he put on.
Yeah, the tattoo
to
home. Lead her back to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's brilliant. I love it. Okay, about this. So yeah, so she needs to use him to like get there, but then she lets go. That's what happens, right? They like use it. Oh no, and then the King of Aelin is like, we're gonna do it together.
Yeah. The King of Aelin. Yeah.
And then when she's over there, then she shoves him out.
Yeah.
She shoves Prince Dorian out first. Yeah, because the nameless Dorian is like, I'm just enough. That's what he says. I have just enough. And so okay, you know what? Another part I completely forgot about upon reread is when freaking Deanna just blows Elena to smithereens.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah, me too.
I literally sat there like,
she's like, we don't make deals. Like,
which is just
hard.
It's just such shit, because it's like, you guys literally can't do anything without them.
Yeah, like, fuck you guys.
Where does your high and mightiness even come from? Because like, what do? You say you're gods, but like, you can't do shit on your own.
Right.
Nope.
So how fucking dare you? Like, it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And I feel like that's why these certain, you know, gods who like, I'm just saying, like, I personally think they absolutely have to be the same ones that show up in a certain book. Like they just have to be the same attitude, same high and mightiness. They are absolutely connected to another book later on, because it's just that attitude that like Deanna has of like, you guys are at our whims, but also you guys can't do shit without us. Like, why did this one certain person of a certain bloodline need to be the one to do this for you if you're gods? Like,
well, and then what Aelin does? Aelin does?
Yeah.
As the gate is shutting to their world, she opens up a portal to the hellscape that she came across.
Yep.
Guys, bye-bye.
She said, bye, bitch.
Yep.
And then, oh gosh, okay, you're gonna get to it, I know, but this is where we gotta talk about the connection.
Well, and I wanna explain like exactly how that happens, because this was a confusing part for me.
Yeah.
Because what we see is the word gate to the gods world closes after she opens the portal to the hellscape. Then Mala gives Aelin a bit of her magic back to say thank you for trying to save her daughter. At the last moment, I said that. She leaves the gods to battle the creatures within, closes the gate, the lock is forged, and Aelin is left with only a drop of water magic.
Right.
The word marks woven into the new tattoo Rowan gave her bring her back to her world. So she passes through So then, yeah. Then this is how she gets like hurdled through like all of these different worlds.
Right.
Mhm.
She used the lock herself, right? Isn't that how it? Well, I know she's got the bit of water magic. She's got the tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through the tattoo is trying to bring her back.
And she's going too fast, and she's tumbling through the worlds, and that's
well, it's like it's like an anchor or a tie.
Yes,
to kind of help her direct.
She's like trying to find. She's trying to find him because she's going so fast.
To give her an anchor, and so the word mark is like, you know, I see it as like it's like a GPS coordinate that he's like their mating bond is like a map.
Like a homing beacon.
Yeah.
But I feel like she was tumbling out of control and going too fast, and it was Rhysand who gave her the bump and the push, and he was the one shortly after
he slowed her down.
He slows her down at the right
moment.
route.
Because she was coming very close to her world. She saw it coming.
Yeah.
But then she was thinking, I'm too fast. And then there's Rhysand and Feyre, and he slows her down right when she needs to.
See, I don't know that she knew. I didn't read it like that. I read it like she's going too fast. She knows she's too fast. Then she sees Crescent City. Then she sees Rhysand, a fae with heavily pregnant female.
Yes.
And she's like, they're fae, but not my fae, not my world. And then that's when he gives her a bump, and then he slows her down just enough so that she then can get into her world. And it doesn't say how she gets in. It just says that he slowed her down, and then next thing you know, she opened her eyes and she's in the pine forest of Aurelia.
Yeah,
that's how I read it. Is that right?
It was pretty. Yeah, that was it. It was, but it was like it's like Rhys kind of like sensed something about her, and that's why he slowed her down. But it just like happened to be at like the perfect moment, kind of.
Yes.
Like either way, she needed to slow down.
Yes.
But I do recall her thinking, I'm getting close to my world. Like she could feel.
That's true.
She was getting. I think that's what is said.
He says home, the way home. So she knows she's on the path to getting home, but it's like she needed that extra assistance. And I think the other thing that was significant for me is how the worlds line up. Because we had talked about before in terms of, are these parallel dimensions? Are they stacked on top of each other, coexisting at the same time? Or are they parallel dimensions? Like, what does that timeline look like? And I thought it was very interesting that as she's traveling through the world, that she sees Crescent City, then she sees Rhysand and ACOTAR stuff, and then her world is right there. So it makes me kind of go like, oh, to walk through the doors, the portals would make it so that you can go from your world right into Rhysand's world, right into Crescent City, which I think will be relevant in future books or in other books that we're reading in other series, namely Crescent City.
And that's why I also feel like these three worlds are related time-wise. Like, I think of Crescent City as the future, and then if we're going backwards, I think of ACOTAR, and then I think of Throne of Glass as the most in the past.
Most prehistoric, if you will, for lack of a better word.
So that's how I've always interpreted it.
I love that, because I sort of struggled with like, where in time are these things existing? And so like to hear it like laid out in that way, like makes a lot of sense.
Oh, this is interesting. Stacy says, I thought in Akawar he saw her when he was in the cauldron.
Ooh. We need to pay
attention. Is that what happens? Like, did he also see into other worlds?
He does. He sees a glowing. Okay, hold on. He sees a glowing fae, because we zoomed in on that when we read Akawar.
Whoa,
but that's like at a different time, you know.
Yeah.
A different time, because this one, when he sees her, this one is from Silver Flames.
Yes.
Because I think even when we get to Silver Flames, someone else comments on.
Yes.
It as well. There's someone else.
You're right.
But this one, when we were reading this was us getting to see a glimpse of like a future thing of Rhys and Feyre, because the last time we saw them, they were just deciding to get pregnant. And then this was us seeing like, because I found the pages on page 800 of like, there was a male beautiful beyond reason, and he smiled to wave at her. He sent a blast of dark power like a gentle summer night, and it slammed into her, not to attack, but to slow her down. It was a shield that she tore and plunged through, but it slowed her, and it slowed her just enough. And so then he disappeared back in his world without a whisper. and she landed in Oakwald, and there she was. So yeah, it was like she was going through his, and he like throws out a net, and it like boop, and she pops through down into hers. That's how it's like described.
Yeah.
So, but timeline wise, yes, it would be. It's like a Silver Flames timeline where we're seeing them. We're seeing them.
And so that must be it too, is that he must like recognize her from when he saw like a glowing fae in the cauldron.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's these, you know, it's these super powered fae who have that, who have the chance of like seeing each other, because they're the people that are in these areas. But I think it's when I can't remember if it's in the cauldron where like he just catches a glimpse of her. I don't know that she acknowledges him, but then he remembers her when she comes, because it says she goes through his starry sky. Like literally she's a comet going through.
Yes.
So, and it's a starry sky. So I'm like, are they out on like Starfall?
Oh yeah.
You know, because what do they say about Starfall is there's like,
they're spirits.
Yeah. And so, but it's like when he recognizes it, because he like waves. So
that's so cool.
It says a
okay, so
anyway,
the glowing person that Reese sees in the cauldron could also be someone else who we have not met yet in our Sarah J. Maas.
Oh.
Go down.
It could be.
Oh.
Because that's what I was thinking.
That's
but maybe not.
It.
But I don't know.
It could go either way. It could go either way.
I think that depends on if when she was writing Akawar, she already had like, you know, that's what I think. Whereas like, I don't think you're wrong, because it's such a vague description. Sarah could make it be someone else. I just feel like when we were reading Akawar, that because these are coming out at the same time, I felt like she was bouncing between those two. And that would explain like why he like knows who it is.
Yeah, he recognized
when she goes through. But I'd also
also
have to know who it is. But.
Plus, also after this whole situation, Aelin doesn't have her big bright firepower anymore. So she's not technically glowing anymore.
She has a little bit left.
She has an ember, is what it says.
No. When he sees her in the cauldron, I'm not saying it's this time.
I'm saying
okay, okay. Okay, I get you now. I get you.
Not, because this is a different time. Like it's a different
time.
It
is, yeah.
Because now Feyre's pregnant. So it's not the same time that he was in the cauldron. I'm thinking that they've seen each other at different times. That's my
Yes, I think that's right.
Again, that's just guessing. Anyway, before 2 o'clock, that happens. They see each other, and we land up back there. And now she has her power greatly reduced. Still has a tiny bit, but she can't be human anymore.
Yeah. So now she's an immortal fae. Her mortality burned away. Their journey to Orinth continues. So now we're getting to the forces in Orinth are faltering. Aelin is still hurt. The army is running out of supplies and weapons. They estimate 4 days until they are destroyed. I'll just go to this next because we're getting there. But this is when Darrow's finally like not a piece of shit, and he recognizes Lysandra as the Lady of Caraver. Gives Aelin his sword back. Hours before their defeat, Aelin arrives. And no, that already happened.
Let's talk about the little folk who helped get them there.
Yeah.
When they do that now, right?
Yeah. Yes, they help get them to Orinth as quickly as possible.
They like open secret passages and they freeze over rivers so they can go across them, and they get them there in like 4 days or something.
Yes.
That like they get them and they do like how weeks journey in like 4 days.
And then the Lord of the North. She's riding on the Lord of the North, bitch.
That fan art is amazing.
Talk about cinematic. Like I can vividly see that in my mind. Oh my god.
Yep.
So freaking talk about an entrance.
Is that when do the wolves join? Is that when they're coming along too?
This happens at
because they're like on
Later.
the
That
map. I
happens
think they,
later.
like, okay,
That happens later. Yeah.
literally because someone goes to the wolf tribe and like brings them.
Yes. So that happens with the Maeve thing later. Yes. So we have Gabriel. What? Oh
Yeah.
my God. They're shutting the gates to the Orinth, and Gabriel sacrifices himself.
I gotta say too, like this part makes no sense to me.
I agree.
Like I know that it's supposed to be of like this is the moment, but like it makes no sense. When I read it the first time or the second time, I'm like, but why did you do that?
I'm gonna be real. I feel like it's a little bit of a pointless sacrifice because they were already closing the gate anyway.
Yeah.
Gabriel was using his shield. Why did he need to leave the shield? Like, why? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Well, because it like Aelin says that too, right?
Yes.
It's like, why did he do that?
He says that after the fact. He's like, he didn't need to do that.
Yeah, and like you wanted to see your dad so bad, like, or he wanted to see you so bad, and then he does that. And I know, like, okay, my like side of it is that I feel like he wants his son to have like this to be what he remembers of him. And I feel like he is tired, and this is his final goal, is to make his son proud of him and be done.
Yeah, like
I don't like thoughts. Yeah, like I don't like thoughts like that, but because he could have, you know, been around and been like a grandfather and been like there.
Yeah.
But I can also get it of like he's been a warrior his whole life, and what's the most honorable death he could have, and this would be it. I don't like that kind of brain thought because I just don't like. To me, it feels like a suicide.
I know
that ultimately doesn't save as many lives as we like to think that it does.
Yes,
that's the thing. Like if it had been the kind of sacrifice that like the 13 make, where it literally is for sure saving like what's going on. But for me, it just kind of felt like I feel that. Honestly, I feel it's like I think Sarah set up the stakes the wrong way. Like she just made the stakes more that like he had to, or else have him think he's going to sacrifice himself and live. Because let's be real, Sarah does that all the time. Like she does all the time where they don't actually die when they think they will. And I wouldn't have been mad at her if she didn't have this killed. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you've already killed the 13. We lost Dorian's dad for sure. Like all this stuff has happened. Like you didn't actually have to kill Gabriel. Like he could have tried to do it and then like failed and then been around to be a grandpa. Like, come on.
I agree.
Anyway.
It's also weird because the first time I read this book, his sacrifice did make sense to me. And then reading it the second time around, it's almost like I was reading a completely different scene. I don't know what I was thinking the first time that I read it. I don't know what was going on in my mind, but this time around I was like, wait, that was it?
Yeah. Well, because it's so emotional the first time. I think it's what you say. Like I said, the 2 times I sobbed were the 13 and for this. Like I was ugly crying because there was so much potential. Like there was so much, you know, and Aelin had been alone and holding it up all these years. And his father's been saying like, I'm so like, he's my joy. I'm so proud. And then like to make him proud, you kind of needlessly killed yourself.
I know.
I think
yourself killing Erewhon, cool. Like he's a hero. But for this one, I'm like, why?
One thing that I've seen floating around, especially since like book talk has become a bigger thing and people are reading these books like for the first time, a lot more people are on that platform. I've seen the idea like floated around, which I kind of agree with, but it's that SJM, which the 13 sacrifice was a big thing, but also it's the only real main character in the 13 that we see the majority of the time is Astrid. The other 12 are kind of like background characters. And I feel like the only one that SJM could have killed from the cadre was Gabriel.
Yeah.
Because he's got the least amount of page time. He's got the most potential, perhaps, with his relationship with Aelin, but he's one that we would be the least attached to, the least upset by if he died, which I still sobbed like a big ass baby.
He's Feyre's dad. He's Feyre's dad.
Yeah.
Literally. He's like a sacrifice that's sacrificed, but we can move on and be okay with the end, even though he's dead. You know?
He's honestly the third dad.
Like, because Dorian,
Dorian's dad is dad. She's killing dads. Are you Disney here? You got to kill everybody's parents off. No. But anyway, it's interesting. Like I mean, that makes sense what you've just said, Joe. I think it's just the thing of like people expect that of a fantasy that you have to have cost. And I've never been a person who like has to have costs. Like I'm just not. Like I'm okay with a lot of almosts. Like I'm okay with it. Whereas I know some people who are hardcore fantasy are like, you didn't kill anyone. This isn't real. This didn't have a cost. And I'm just like I mean, I think the hundreds of thousands of people who died fighting aren't useless just because they didn't have a name to me. But that's just me. That's why I'm a romance reader and not a full fantasy reader anymore. Is I don't need there to be a heavy cost. I want everyone to be together. And as we said, like he's the only one not in a relationship besides Fenris, and Fenris already lost his brother, so we can't like take him too. So
and there still was a cost. There absolutely have. There's been tons of costs in this book and in this series. And so now we're moving into Maeve and Erewhon showing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about because Erewhon's demise happens first. What's interesting about this is that like it happens separate from the battle. Like it's like kind of weird that like Aelin's not the one, but obviously Yrene has to be the one.
They figure it out. They figure it out. Because we did have to, because we can't touch on every damn thing, but that was one of the things of like now that she's here and you know Kale's kind of like my lady can do some shit. She's pretty cool. And also, by the way, just how he's just a part of their lives of like he knows when he needs his cane and he knows when he needs his chair because if it's gonna be a tough day, like I'm gonna start the day on my feet. And some days I won't even get on my feet because she's needed more than me. And for him to just like he's so complete, they're so completely in sync, it's so amazing because he would have not been able to do that a year ago, you know, mentally or however long it's been. Like he couldn't mentally have handled that. But it's like he knows when it's his turn to sit down, literally.
He's grown so much. It's insane. His character development is insane.
His growth is insane to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yes, like I love that like she's been doing that this whole time and she can tell which ones were kind of like voluntarily in this position and which ones didn't have a choice. So her just getting to save people at like such a high, like, well, not even like for her, there's a physical cost, like, and there's risk to their baby too, but she also is just so badass. Like she's able to do this. And when she realizes that like, well, he's basically just he's just the daddy version of what I've been doing this whole time. You know, he's just the big boss version of, you know, I think we can like, heal him. Like we can expel this, you know?
Yeah.
So
real quick, there is a question that I want to address.
Yeah.
So the reason why Erewhon didn't go back is because Aelin wanted to, and the gods were like, "Fuck you."
They wouldn't take him.
They said you deal with him. It's your problem. Good luck.
They killed Elena, and they wouldn't take him. Which the only reason Elena was doing this was to make Erewhon go away. So the gods just gave them double deuces. This is what they did. Like, they just put him over. So it's supposed to, Amanda. That's the point.
Yeah. So that's we love how pivotal Yrene ends up playing.
Like, they were gonna have to be the ones to rip him out is kind of the thing. Like they were already like waiting and ready to go, you know, whereas like she was able to like direct which place they went in, but she didn't have the power to just like zoink him out of there herself. That's why the gods had to do it. And they fucked us. They got what they wanted and they fucked us. And so now she's depowered for a good amount. Like she has to go in fully bluffing her way in, which if we've seen one thing in 8 books, It's that when we need Selena to come out, she will.
there.
And this is a case of like Selena and Aelin at the perfect like meeting place of like, I'm gonna put on my swagger and go bluff the shit out of this. It's a perfect meeting of it all. So
yeah, because now we've got the scene with Maeve.
Yep.
And this is interesting how it plays out because it ends up being like Fenris stabs her with Goldrin and keeps the sword inside of her. Yep. And Maeve is trying to bargain with Aelin, and then Aelin's like, well, here's Athrel's ring, a gift from Silva, by the way, onto her finger. And it burns her, and Aelin beheads her, killing her.
So satisfying.
This is a really cool way of taking her out.
I love that Sarah does like, let's always decapitate the evil. Like, like that's the only way. Whether it's a zombie or a vampire or a bitch Vol queen, or like, we chop off their head. That's how we do it.
Whatever.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Ultimate ending.
So then we have, and I forgot about this. Like when Erewhon is defeated, that all the Valg forces drop. They collapse.
Instantly. I love that. Yeah.
I was like, thank goodness, that's convenient. Like, woo!
Yeah, really.
Well, that's thing to think about.
Well, see, that's why,
it makes sense.
That's why too. I kind of brought up the thing about the Stygian spider, who when he killed her, that Falcon got his years back, because it's like it's that thing of like the magic that was used for it when the being is killed, that is taken away. And I love that. I love that whenever that's used in a fantasy trope, by the way. Like that's the thing in the Vampire Diaries one season of like, you kill the original, all of your line dies. I like love that shit so much.
Like you kill the head and all the minions just fall because they have nothing else.
It kind of happened in another fantasy book that recently came out that I won't talk about. Anyway, just saying. It's cool.
So
better world.
We have the road to a better world. So just real quick, we have Aelin enters Orinth and try. Oh my god, I love that scene when they're all like walking through Orinth together, like our main gang. We have
it's Lord of the Rings. It's Lord of the Rings, where you're gonna have your like victory tour at the end.
So we have Lysandra and Adian are at peace. We have Elite and Lorcan. They end up getting married.
Lady Lockin.
Thank God.
Lorcan Lockin.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love when she realizes it. She's like, oh, well, but you'd take my name. So you'd be Lord Lockin. This big, serious, tough guy is going to be teased for the rest of his life. And he's okay with it.
He doesn't give a shit because he's now got a lead. And then something I forgot about when he was like, hey, we're going to get married. And when we get married, I'm going to bind you to me so that you could live as long as I do. And I'm like, ah! That's how they addressed it.
Yep.
That made me tear up. That got me.
Oh, yeah. That got me. They're all good. That's why magic is the best. Because Dorian and Manon, they'll like live the same, that'll work out. And Aelin will settle.
Adian and Lysandra.
Yeah, they'll get it. So
and then we just have we have Manon traveling. This is this will be, I think there is more to the story, I think a little bit with Manon going back to the Waste to be the Queen of Witches, and then Dorian is the King of Adarlan. And then, oh my God, the final sentence of the book with the King's Flame blooming everywhere. Just
like the world is in peace. We're under the reign of a good queen. Everything's good.
Well, we didn't even talk about like the one place that like the guy who kept the one little blossom of it.
Darrow kept it. Yeah.
You know,
And he put that on her crown.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I know that we were like shitting on him, but like I love his arc in this.
No, I do too, and I forgot that he does get a redemption.
Yeah,
and
that's why I was like, he's making those choices, but like, he's not that much different than Aelin in a lot of ways.
I agree.
Like, it's coming out as a shitty thing, and the reason they're butting heads so much is because like Daryl is a lot like older than Aelin, and he's seen stuff, and he just wants their people to be okay. We're past the point where that can be the answer, but that's what he's trying to do, and it takes like seeing Evangeline and being like, no, I want the better world for this. For the young.
Yes, I love the bond between Darrow and Evangeline. I just wanted to bring up this comment real quick because I want to say, like, the first time I read this book, I did not like the ending with Dorian and Manon. I didn't like where things left off with them. But then upon reread, it's like I know these characters more, and I understand. Like, I totally understand like their ending. Like Manon going back to be the queen of her people, and Dorian going back to be the king of his people because of who Manon is. Remember, there was that whole scene where Manon was like, yeah, like maybe we should get married, and she literally called it a sacrifice. But that's not for her. That's not that's not her.
And two things. Like, one, everybody else who's coupled up, like they can be with their person. You know, like they're both from the same place. Their goals are aligned. Only one of them is a leader. You know, like Rowan and Aelin, and Elide and Locken, and Kale and Irene. Wow, this is really testing me. And like Sartak and Ness. Like they're all like one of them is a leader, so they can be with their person, right? Whereas like Manon and Dorian are both king. Like they're a king and a queen of totally different places. So that's where, and that's my second half, is like where Taji was mentioning earlier of like they're probably going to be, if we're coming around again, like they're the people that are still unsettled because there's more to happen. Dorian, he hasn't even got to like be the king of Aderland.
No,
he was made a king or a prince as like a puppet, and then it's been fucked the whole time. Like Erewhon was ruling it, so who even knows how his people are feeling about everything, whatever. And Manon, she's only just become the leader, and she's going to be a whole different kind of queen as well. So like, I know it feels like a happy for now, but like it is a happy for now. Like they have to go back, and there's probably going to be strife that's happening still. So anyway.
Yeah.
Plus their leaderships, like you were saying, both of their leaderships are very tenuous. And with the wastes, like this whole curse has been a huge deal in the waste. Plus, Ansel of Briarcliff is still over the wastes at this point. Yeah. So we have this conversation where she's like, hey, I'll share the wastes with the witches. So they've got to go and pretty much build from the ground up. Both Dorian and Manon have to build from the ground up. So, but also I think there's so much more to their story. And I really hope that there's more. Yeah. Because I want to know what happens. Yeah, I'd love to read more.
We all do.
You know, I think we can kind of move into like the speculation part now. More of this. But like, I agree with that. And I remember, again, like going back to like interviews that I've listened to her do. When she was finished with this series, she was very focused on, you know, they're going to be more for ACOTAR, because that had been the series that had like finished before, and that's what was coming next. And she knew she wanted to do an adult fantasy next, which I feel like the way that she's built it up, you know, whatever we get next will fully be adult. Not that this wasn't, but the point that we're at for the themes and what's going on. And so if we come back into this, you know, maybe it'll be called something else. Maybe it'll be like, instead of Throne of Glass, it'll be like, oh, it can't be the Iron Throne. That'd be funny. She's coming up. But it could be like Throne of Fire or something like that. I don't know. But I'll be very interested to see where that goes. But I do think that the connections between Crescent City and ACOTAR is what obviously is where the next one is first. But coming back to that of like, you know, if ACOTAR's in the middle of it.
Yes.
And we end up doing more world jumping, like we'll see. Maybe we need help from someone over there. And the most powerful one left is Dorian. Yeah. So that's where I think of like, if there's a crossover character, I don't necessarily see it being Aelin. Because she's a queen, she's going to be having babies with Rowan, they're going to be having whatever. And we saw how powerful Dorian is.
Right.
You'd be the logical one to me to be in that, brought into that. That's
and his power is limited now, though.
Yeah.
But he's still very powerful. It's just he has a limit to it.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I would add to that, I agree 100%, Jen. The only thing I would add to that is I think Manon has a role in that because of her lineage and how she was bred. Because remember, she is Vlog and demon or something, or however she came about, and the color of her eyes and that whole sort of conversation around when the Vlog saw her and having fear or whatever, those small references. So I think that kind of come together.
And the witch in the wood, she's a more direct connection with Baba Yaga and the witches.
Yeah.
I just meant Dorian will be the member of the trio that have the connections. And
if somebody comes to help,
if
somebody comes to help, Dorian would probably be the best bet.
That's what I meant. Just because Aelin and Rowan are coupled up and we're good. I'm sure she would
let them have some peace. Let them have
she would still have to stick her nose into it. But
of course. I did want to answer this question real quick. Vaughn was another member of the cadre. Because remember, he was an Heir of Fire. This is throwback. He was an Heir of Fire, in Dornell. But there's not much to say about him. So that's
least dramatic. He was the least dramatic member of the cadre.
Yeah, there's just not much. But and I already mentioned my biggest theory about this was the 3 pieces of the cauldron versus the 3 word keys and all of that.
Yep. Oh, okay. One thing we didn't talk about is I remember this one being a lot spicier than it was.
I do too.
I do too.
Totally not what I even had my eyes on in this.
Exactly.
But I remember there being so much more, even though the scene that I remember sticking out so much was the Alita and Lorcan one. And that was
and nothing happened.
Almost made it black. It was
it was.
Lorcan did. That's all we got. And I will be.
And Lorcan did.
It was enough to move me. I love that, but and I also remembered in my head, I remembered this big reunion sex scene, and it's between only mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, we did have one sex scene between the two of them that was explicit. But I mean, it wasn't, but it was only a couple pages, and it was when they were, I want to say,
in the cave, I thought.
Huh?
Aren't they in the cave?
They're in the cave, yeah. That's what I thought. I thought it was after they did the raid and they did the rings, right? Wasn't it then?
You know what? I remember it happening when they're already on Aurelia, on the continent, and she's been training again, and that's when I remember the sex scene happening.
Because otherwise the only things are she reacquainted herself with parts of his body. That was a line.
It's mentioned.
But anyway, point being, not the most important part of this by any means, but I remember this being so much spicier than it was when I'm rereading it. Because in rereading it, I was wow, there's 1.5 in here. What's going on?
We didn't even, because I vaguely remembered a more more of a scene between Alita and Lorcan. Maybe not along the same lines of the beach scene in Empire of Storms, but something more something.
I thought there was an Adian and Lysandra one too.
Me too.
I thought there was too.
Or she forgives him, and
so now I'm I gotta go read fanfic.
Yeah. Aren't we glad? Anyway, I just wanted to comment on it because, while we're doing our things, I was wow, sex didn't come up at all because it just wasn't this one. I mean, I'm glad she didn't because this book has they're fighting for their life every minute, but usually there's some danger bangs in a good scary book.
You gotta let off some steam somehow and all that pressure.
Right. Recent Feyre find time to do a stress relief bang in the cat, whatever. But anyway, this book.
Do we have any more connections or theories? I will say in the scene when she's hurtling through worlds, I did take a notice of 2 very small quotes one of them was like a world of like rivers and something, and then one was a world with all oceans, like no land. I'm just very intrigued, like, is this going to come to play at all in like any future series?
Sure.
You know,
I love it too.
but yeah,
but I loved that like the Crescent City was talked about so clearly.
Yeah, because of course when I first read it, I didn't even underline that. I didn't even take note of it. And so then upon reread, I'm like underlining it. And I'm
Crescent City!
The great city had been built along the curve of a river, the buildings impossibly tall and glimmering with lights. So a place that has like electricity is just...
I love the way it's described. That is so cool.
Well, and using the words that you would know. I love when fantasy authors can do that, when you're like describing something that you don't have the words for.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't know what electricity is. You don't have electricity.
Yeah, just glimmering with lights.
Right?
Yeah.
It says, buildings that were impossibly tall and glimmering with lights. Yeah, in a world of rain and green wind. Rain, green, and wind. Yeah. Cool.
And then real quick, something I forgot to delve into that I said I was going to delve into was the whole thing of when they were defeating Maeve, and they use like word marks or something to like open up a portal to the wolves, like to the Fae and the wolves. Yeah. And then they were like, "Hey girl, we hate you. Here we come." That was like right before they killed her. That they were like, "Hey, here's all these people that like fled a decade ago or whatever, but they hate you and they're still here."
Also, this was my like other version. I'll show this one too. I don't know if anyone has
Yes!
Oh, that's beautiful.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love it.
Yes, look at my baby.
I seriously need to get some of these alternate covers.
This one is just the regular one from, I think I got mine at Target. This was the Target version.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, these were all on sale for Black Friday and they're amazing. So
yeah, the Dusty Shop ones. Yeah.
But
I took advantage of that.
Rowan is too pretty in this one, but
yeah,
they're all too YA in this.
I agree. Yes, they are too YA.
YA, but that's
like
okay.
Age them up in our brain.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, they make her so cutesy. They give her like freckles and like it's so pretty, but
I'm the Firebringer.
like Rowan is just way young and perfect looking. Like
I know. Yeah.
Way too. It's so not him, but I still love that. I love her gold armor and all those things. But
so I wanted to end on a really, really hard question.
I absolutely
character and favorite relationship.
Yeah.
What do you have, Joe? Come on.
Oh, my favorite relationship is Aelin and Lorcan, 100%. 100% over Aelin and Rowan, over everyone, Aelin and Lorcan. But my favorite character is probably not a mix between, but Lysandra or Irene.
Really?
Yes, those are my babies. I love them so much. But Aelin and Lorcan are my favorite couple. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
I completely agree, because if I were to be reading a romance that was just one couple, like they're the ones that I would want. I look for that kind of relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Let me speak up. Read more of the Fae Guardian books, because so many of them are based on that couple in the Fae Guardian series by Lana Perchek. Just saying. My favorite character is.
I know.
It's so tough. When I think of it in totality, like, gosh, it's. I don't know. I can't. With character arc wise, this reread, I would say that it's Kale.
Oh.
Yeah. Upon reread.
Upon reread, which I wouldn't have even said until right now. Like, I think he's my favorite. Character arc. And he just, like, he's a good man with duty, and then he goes through stuff and he becomes an even better man with his duty prioritized correctly. Like, he's found the right cause, and like Irene just makes him even better and makes that work. But he went through so like we didn't have the time, like this stuff with his father and facing his father down, coming home with him for the first time, the letter from his mother, letter from his mother when Irene has it and he's like, I can't read it, and she's like starts crying and is like, you have to read it.
Yeah.
Reads the letter. Guys, I cried so hard. I totally forgot about that. I blocked it out. Where she's like, I would love to come and stay with you. I'll bring your little brother.
Yeah.
I'd love to come and meet your wife. And I was like, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that he is getting what he deserves in like this sweetest, like, and he's the one, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't have the powers. He just had his duty and his heart.
That's
and
right.
He was tested and tried, and he made wrong decisions, and then he made right decisions in the best. So
he's human. It showed the reality of him being human. He's human, right? He makes right decisions, wrong decisions, but ultimately he hangs in there and gets what he deserves. And that's
he didn't even have the pressure of like the whole world on his shoulders, because that's the thing. Like obviously, like Dorian and Aelin and like they have like, and Manon even, like they have the weight of the world, and so like they have to make good decisions. You know what I mean? Like when they make mistakes, there is big consequences. And Kale could have very easily been written as like a petty ex or become an enemy. You know, that could have been a different journey. But like Sarah really does right by him, and I like honestly, I cannot believe I'm saying this, and not because like I hated him, but I was just kind of like, oh, I love Kale's journey, but. Even in this one, like what we see of him, I'm really impressed.
Great
character.
Yeah. The first time I read it, I didn't really like pay too much attention to like where he is now in Kingdom of Ash and how amazing that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, Taji, I'm gonna let you answer first and then I'll answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as what everyone else said. I mean, you know, Aelin and Lorcan are my favorite characters for all the reasons that we already outlined. And I just love to see their journey and their arc. And Lorcan, you know, he's such an ancient being, and like, and how he cares for, you know, Aelin. And, you know, and I understand why he made the decisions that he did. And I understand him because he was put in a really difficult position because of the blood bond with Maeve. But, you know, you could tell that it really affected him in a way that he was trying to not show it, but what he says, I just didn't know. I didn't know. Like when it comes out who Maeve really was, he was like, you could tell, like, he's like, I just didn't know. So anyway, I just love him. And then
she couldn't get rid of his goodness. She couldn't get rid of his goodness, even after all of that.
Yeah. And he's such a powerful being. And to see him like, you know, and then when Aelin said to him, I saw you groveling and crawling after her when the bond was broken. And when he reveals like, no, I wasn't crawling after her. I was trying to get to Aelin. You know, like a power for me of like explanation. And so many times when we think we know and we make decisions based on what we think we know. And then when you find out the reality, sometimes those things are very far apart, you know? So I love that. And then probably my favorite character, and I'm forgetting her name, but it's Manon's second. What's her name?
Asterin.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love her because of her journey and because of everything that she's gone through. And, you know, and because of the tumultuous nature of the relationship between her and Manon, when she was challenging her, when Manon was not making right decisions, but she was standing up anyway and saying like, I don't agree with you. And then when we heard her whole story and then the ultimate sacrifice. And so her whole like character development from start to finish, I just absolutely love. And she needs lots of props for her courage and her character and, you know, having loved and lost and just all of it. Like, I just love her.
So my favorite relationship is Aelin and Lorcan. And there's moments in Kingdom of Ash that like, I always forget about, like, how even when they were fighting, like he still had scraps of cloth ready for her, like when she's period, and like the way that this woman brings this man to his knees, like it's just like you said, Jen. I want to read a romance novel just about them. Like if I had to pick one couple, it definitely would be them.
Yeah,
and then like for me, my gut feeling of my favorite character, as much as Rowan is my book husband.
Yeah.
I think it's Lysandra, because I think I've always just had a very strong emotional connection to her, given that, like, we see how she starts out in the Assassin's Blade as this courtesan who is being used by Arabin and her madam, and like how she comes from that, and then how she saves Evangeline from that same fate. And then, like, when magic comes back, seeing her come into her power, and she's so incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Like, the way
absolutely.
in, like, Empire of Storms, she's studying the pictures of these sea dragons, and like you see the wheels turning in her head, and like she's just fucking incredible. I love her.
She's a ride or die, like, throughout the. I mean, because I
So
hated Lysandra when I first read about her in Assassin's Blade. I absolutely hated her, but once you read all of the little intricacies and you learn about her story, I mean, she's seriously a ride or die. She gives up her entire identity for this.
It's
amazing.
Like, it comes back to it for me of why Sarah is amazing and why I have no problem when Sarah writes these overpowered women. Well, not even overpowered, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times when people try in, like, YA fantasy or adult fantasy, they make a powerful woman. She has, like, no weaknesses. She has no flaws. She's got to be perfect. She's the Virgin Mary. She's all of these things, whatever. And Sarah doesn't write just like a bitchy ex. She doesn't write just like this person evil. Even Maeve, even, you know, like these people, like, we meet people in the beginning. We meet Lysandra, we meet Nesta, we meet Aelin, like Kaltain. Like, we just think they're going to be like this one thing, and they have oceans beneath them, which is the way when we meet people in our lives, and to us, they're like the bitter ex in our story, you know, like they're the villain in our story. And it's just like, you've never met a person who's just the villain in your story. Like, you never have. And I feel like Sarah is able to put that into her book so well. And my favorite characters, like the way I feel about Nesta, where we'll finally get to see that soon, 2 more months, because so many people are just like, ugh, she's just
she's just one note.
And just like, no, there's lots to her. And that's why, I'm sorry to bring you around to this again, I'm waiting for that to happen for Elaine, because I was like, there's no way Elaine is just this. She's not. I'm happy to feel that way now and just be like, whatever, she's annoying. But like, I know that Sarah didn't make one of the sisters just blah. Because she makes women full-bodied, everything. And so when they're the powerful ones doing this, I don't feel like it's just girl service. It's like, no, she built these people to be this. So when they do that, they've earned it. And even when there was things where, like, Selena was doing things where they're like, oh, she's talked a big game. I'm like, no, that's part of who she's become. She's talked that so she can do this. Like, she can get away with being the bravado and doing that because she, like, that persona's been built. So she could use it as a tool. I just love it.
No, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Also, I'm going to say something else about Lorcan, where we're talking about the, like, strips of cloth, like how sad he is that he doesn't get to brace her leg anymore because she won't let him do it anymore. Gabriel's doing it. He still does the strips of cloth. Like
he's such a secret simp for Aelin.
Like, he's the hair brushing type of guy, right? Because he like braid her hair.
I think so.
He braids her hair in the first one to keep it from getting, like, dirty or whatever. Not the first one, but, you know, the first one they're in. I've read that quite a few times in books recently with, like, men, like, braiding hair or brushing hair. And I was like, I have a new oddly specific thing I would like to read.
Right?
Like, one of my favorite books of the year. Where is it at? One of my favorite books of the year. He gets gum out of her hair. She has this long, beautiful, she has, like, Aelin hair, and these mean girls put gum in her hair. And she's, like, pissed. And she's like, you probably think I'm petty, but, like, I love my hair. And he's like, no, you have beautiful hair. Let me get that gum out of your hair. And he gets all the gum out of her hair. Sorry. Sidetrack.
Honestly, that is like king shit to me. Like, come on. I'm here for that.
Prince, she's like, you probably think I'm vain and I'm just being whatever. And he's like, no, you have gorgeous hair. I love looking at your hair. Let me get this.
Let's fix it. Let's fix it for you, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a prince. Okay, that's a prince.
So, do we have any last thoughts before we close out this live show?
I can't believe it's over.
Yeah.
This has been a long time coming. I remember when Jen, you were like planning this read along, and I'm like, holy shit, December is going to be King of Ash.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's
so
going to be
satisfying.
forever.
So satisfying.
Yeah.
And yeah, the next one is January 29th at 5:30. We'll be doing Crescent City. So I'm like going to start it on my drive home for Christmas, I'm pretty sure. So
You might as well. It's so long.
But yeah, we have like 6 weeks to get through that one. So
yes.
Very excited. But
well, thank you all so much. Thank you all to, the viewers that have joined us. And thank you so much for commenting with us, discussing this book with us. I'm so glad that I got to host this one. Just like, this is my favorite Sarah J. Maas series. It will always mean so much to me. Like the characters and just the world and the relationships and just everything is just immaculate for me. And so thank you so much, Taji, Joe, and Jen for being on this live show. And thank you, Jen, for organizing this whole read along. So yeah, we will see you guys in January for House of Earth and Blood.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa. Have a good night, everyone. Bye. It always takes a second.